I'm calling to order the February 27, 2024 meeting of the Southborough Select Board. The first item on the agenda is public comment, and this is an opportunity for members of the public to offer a comment on a matter which is not on our posted agenda, and it's intended as a comment rather than a back and forth or a deliberation or a discussion, and we try to keep public comments to 3 minutes. And is there anyone here that wishes to make a comment? Bonnie or sir? Now, if this is, do you know if this is about the dispatch issue? Because if so, I think we're probably going to take it under the warrant. As part of our
And it
discussion.
may not be.
Okay.
I don't want to hamstring you. First of all, thank you for public comment. The reason I'm speaking before the budget is I'm asking for direction, which I'm sure you're going to be giving later, as far as the warrant article that's in the budget. I want to remind some of you, all of you, have been involved in the public safety building, the development of that building. It was dedicated in 2019. The bond will not be paid off until 2047. We owe $19 million on that building. My name is also on the plaque as well. What concerns me is that we built a dispatch center capable of holding, accommodating the needs of this town with 2 dispatches in it. So I'm looking forward as to what we're going to do with that space. There's an immediate need here. Your former member, Mrs. Malinowski, who did a lot of work, said that the night that she left. So I'm hoping you're addressing that in that budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And sir?
Thank you. My name's Robert Warden. I'm a resident of 27 Atwood Street, and I'm here with some other folks from the neighborhood, some abutters.
Okay, thanks.
Apologize for those online. Excellent. Really appreciate everyone's time and willingness to hear us. I'm choosing to speak on behalf of the community in lieu of everyone speaking here in turn. This is related to Article 46. We are writing to express deep concerns in opposition to the inclusion of Article 49, transfer of the Atwood property to the Affordable Housing Trust, currently on the draft of the town warrant, as well as to the initiatives underway to develop the Atwood parcel. I'm going to pause there. I do recognize that there's been some late breaking news and the circumstances have changed, but I'm going to continue to share the perspective of many. Many of this board campaigned and were elected on platforms of increasing the transparency of town governance, improving the south areas of town, and taking steps to improve the lives of our seniors. Much to our dismay, we found that certain actions by the board run entirely counter to these stated goals. As residents of the Atwood Street area and/or abutters to the old water tower property, most of us only became aware of the meetings and efforts to develop this property through neighborhood networking. To date, we still have not been officially notified by either the Affordable Housing Trust or the Select Board. As policy and good faith effort would dictate, we expected that the Select Board would notify abutters that this property was being considered for affordable housing development long before a warrant article was drafted for the town meeting. This was especially critical after the Select Board had learned of the possibility that the site could be contaminated with lead. Again, we've recently learned that it is. Both SHOPC and the Affordable Housing Trust have had meetings where they've discussed outreach to developers and various ideas for how the property could be used, including single-family homes, multi-unit structures, and an MBTA super lot. And they've even approached residents with offers to purchase their property, all without notice to the abutters. At face value, the transfer of this town property to the Affordable Housing Trust requires action in good faith in honoring promises to prevent disruption to the neighborhood and depreciation of its aesthetic and property value. This action, this transfer, removes the ability of any and all town oversight of the future development of this parcel. Unfortunately, it seems that every effort has been taken to avoid transparency and prevent input and advice from this neighborhood. as evidenced by the recurrent closed-door executive sessions, often without subsequent publication of minutes, lack of any notice to abutters, and a lack of any open messaging to seek input or to understand what effects this might have on the community. As you know, this area of town is dense. The area immediately around the Atwood property has dramatically changed over the last 15 years with a large influx of younger homeowners starting families and raising children, as well as maintaining many of the original homeowners who now make up the elderly members of this neighborhood. Each of these roads is home to dozens of children, active with pedestrians who make great use of the open spaces, the historic South Union School and Playground, the Finn School, and the interspersed woodlands. Nearly everyone who moved here was attracted to the area by these amenities and the promise of conserved open spaces, which encapsulate the aesthetic of the properties there. Atwood is particularly dense, a narrow road with several blind areas that already cause unsafe situations with pedestrians and traffic. We hope that the board and these committees had considered the effect of any development in this area regarding these factors. Additionally, for more than 50 years, homes of some of the seniors in this area have been dependent on the field of the water tower for service access to their homes, such that development of this parcel would necessitate a forced move instead of having the long-run dignity to age in place. Any benefit to a family who sought affordable housing would likely come at the expense of another. By all accounts, the efforts to develop the parcel have been barreling forward at breakneck speed for seemingly no reason whatsoever, especially if one considers the gargantuan efforts underway to come into compliance with the MBTA Communities Act, and efforts which we need not remind you will likely concentrate a very large number of affordable housing units in this very same neighborhood. The redundancy of these projects and the seeming urgency with which the Affordable Housing Trust is moving on this property is baffling. Consider also that in addition to this effort and the MBTA Communities project underway in this area, a push to develop the South Union School and a potential community center at the Finn School are also taking place. All of these projects in the same small, densely populated area of town. And any single one of them has the potential to shift the tenor and experience of life in the area. We question how we can justify all these projects simultaneously and with such urgency. And not so long ago, the Fitzgerald properties were built to the rear of this parcel. The residents of this area who remember this also remember the blasting that was necessary because nearly all the ground between Harris, Atwood, and Corderville is granite. The best current demonstrations of this are the glacial erratics and the granite cliffs at the rear of Harris Drive. These tower over the homes there. So former blasting from the Fitzgerald development actually damaged some of the surrounding homes requiring repair. So at what point do we consider the cost of developing this open land versus what minimal benefit or impact this would have on the actual problem of affordable housing in town, a problem that the MBTA Communities Project is supposed to address en masse? Of these few discussions that were made in public by the Affordable Housing Trust, some have involved the possibility of even maintaining access to the woodlands behind. Unfortunately, so many of the few open spaces in this neighborhood are suddenly a target for disruption. We implore the board to exercise reason and abandon this effort altogether while more important efforts take place that already stand to impact this area. It's too much, too fast, and without adequate transparency or due diligence. We appreciate the time for you to hear our concerns and reconsider these issues. Undersigned 25 residents of the area.
Okay, so thank you, sir. And I anticipate that later on in the agenda, we'll be considering whether to take this article off of the warrant for this town meeting, and I anticipate that we're likely going to be taking it off the agenda for this town meeting. So I think we can have an opportunity to discuss this in some further detail later in that portion of the agenda, but I want to thank you for your letter.
Thank you all for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Okay. Does anyone else have a comment that they want to offer? Okay. So then the next item on the agenda, Brian, actually, if it's okay, we were going to take the an appointment first. So Ms. Kumari, would you like to come forward and sit up here and just introduce yourself a little bit? And so you're here and you volunteered for a position on the Cultural Arts Council for a term to expire February 27, 2026. And so if you could just introduce yourself a little bit and explain your interest in serving on the Cultural Arts Council and how you found out about it and why you're interested in serving.
Hi, my name is Rajni Kumari, and I would like to contribute my artwork in this society. And I'm new here, I'm not well prepared, so I'm so thankful for invitation and having all of you here. So definitely next time I'll be prepared and I will contribute my artwork for Southborough Society, Art and Culture. Thank you.
Okay, and and you've spoken to Jen Hansen regarding your interest, is that correct?
Melissa, Melanie, I think Melanie. I sent just a request
Yeah,
for that.
yeah, Melanie Utska got
Okay.
the
Actually, I didn't have
application.
any details discussion, so I just sent only filled form and I just sent and I got this invitation. I had no idea about all this.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
All right, okay, that's okay. Okay, because I just have a note in our packet of the email from Jen Hansen saying that you met at the grant reception before. This is-
Yes,
Yeah.
I saw that note too. Jen seems to be very enthusiastic for this appointment, which is great.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone have any questions?
I had a comment. I actually attended also the Southborough Cultural Arts Council grant ceremony. That was a great one at the library recently, and I saw Ms. Kumari's work, which is very nice.
Thank you
in
so
the
much.
library.
Thank you.
And I think she'd be a great addition to the committee, so I certainly support
Yeah,
this
that
appointment.
was first time I was there, and I attend that reception. I didn't have any idea what kind of that, but I got to know all about that.
It was a great event, and again,
I hope next time I will present better.
it's okay. We're delighted to have you apply for this. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Kumari, you are an artist yourself, it sounds like. You are an artist.
Yeah,
What type of painting do you do?
I do watercolor, pencil artwork, and acrylic, all kind of on fabric and on paper, all kind of.
That's great, so I think you will do great on this because of what you do, so that's great.
And she is a good follow-on to the former member who we lost, our former fire chief, who is a watercolor artist as well. So good to keep that position filled here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Marguerite, Al, any questions? He's on mute.
No questions.
Okay. I move that we appoint Rajari Kumari to the Cultural Arts Council for a term to expire February 27, 2026.
Second?
All those in favor? Oh, we have to do
Do a roll call.
Roll call vote, yeah.
Yep.
So Hamilton,
Aye.
Dennington, aye.
Aye.
Stivers, aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Yes, and so you get an appointment letter by email, and then you go to the town clerk and be sworn in, and then you're off and running. Thank you very much for your interest.
How do you spell your first name? Is it R or I?
R-A-J-A-N-I.
Okay. That's right.
Okay.
Great.
So, and next, we're going to take Brian and Carla for our Q2 financial review. And do you have the PowerPoint? So Vanessa's going to bring up the slide deck that you have.
100 PowerPoint slides. Can't wait.
Typically have our themed holiday that's usually close. I don't know if anyone's noticed, we usually have a holiday theme. I think one time it was Thanksgiving.
We need the luck of the shamrock for this, is that what you're saying?
Somebody tell us that, that's how
It's not that far away.
oblivious you are.
Ryan was in charge of the artwork.
Yeah,
this time.
I like a little artwork, a little fun. And she's got the green on.
Keep your day job.
So this is the ending 12/30/2023 with some information on revenues and expenses. We've done this before. We've changed sort of the format of it a little bit. We've kind of pared it down to make it more bullet point type things, and we have retained the routine of meeting with Ms. Cook and Mr. Pfaff to meet and go over issues, and sometimes there's little granular things in those meetings that sometimes we can talk about and just eliminate, but so we'll just quickly go through these, and then if there's any questions. We still do provide the detail before the meeting, so if there's any questions on that massive amount of data you get for that, you're welcome to, let us know. We'll get an answer for you. So the revenues, real quickly, they're starting to be a little more, known as we get through the second quarter. We always say the first quarter is pretty much not really a good indicator of much, but Q2 starts at least to get a little more not useful. So just a couple of quick things. I won't read it verbatim, but the motor vehicle excise is down mostly because of timing, because any one year we can have billing timing differences. Sometimes it works for us and sometimes it works against us. So that's down about $280,000 this to date. However, the new excise is in now for the new year, which is the major one. I'm sure you've all got your bills. And that's up a few $100,000. So it's interesting that was a pretty good increase from last year. So we'll keep watching that. The pilot funds, just a timing difference, that's all it is. Building fees, we had some large permits these last few years, and this year, finally, we don't have the large ones like we had last year, so that's down a little bit. Dump sticker revenue, we all know we increased the stickers a little bit, so that's up. Investment income, I think that's self-explanatory. We all know from our own accounts that, banks are giving us.
We'll spend a little time on that. So, to add a little color to what you're saying, we've got about $20 million that sits in the bank on any one day. There's a big difference between, 50 basis points and 4%, right? I mean, it's huge. So this is a run rate of almost $600,000 a year for increased revenue just because interest rates went up for us.
That's correct. Just bear in mind that, on any given day, we can have, that's actually chopped off a little bit because the water fund actually is mixed in with our investments, so they get a piece of that, and certain other funds get a piece of it too, so it sometimes can be a little lower than you think, but that is true. All you said is true, the amounts. All the other revenues, with the exception of water revenue, which I think we're well aware that that's been swinging back and forth quite a bit the last few years, are pretty stable, reasonable. I know the board will be hearing from the Director of Public Works probably next Monday, at least preliminary, about the bills and some data that Carla and him have been talking about. So I think there's more to come on that. So that's pretty much the overview of the revenues. I can keep going for the reserve fund transfers, or you can take over. It's up to you.
Well, I can take over.
We'll be using some reserve fund this year.
We will. We will. We can say that. We have so far had one transfer of $87,970. It was for the mold mitigation at Finn. We're eyeing some other potential transfers for a few small departments. Fire looks like, depending on how some of the moving parts shake out, we could have a considerable transfer that is needed in that department. That's really the biggest one. We had a matching grant. The great news was we were able to participate in a grant, but there was a matching provision of $30,000 that we had not provided for. We didn't know when we set the budget last year. And I believe the tower truck needs some repairs, and that is estimated to be about $40,000. I'm not sure if that's a solid number or the specifics on that, but potentially if we have, a lot of overtime and fire, and, with the vacant chief position, we are paying an interim, but we'll see how that all shakes out at the end of the year. We're keeping an eye on that. We anticipate a small transfer maybe for ZBA. We may be able to cover that at a building or another department. That's just due to the 40B projects. Laura Davis is taking on some additional hours. But it will definitely not be the 180,000 turn back that we had last year, unfortunately. That was a nice thing, but.
Do we think the Fen mold remediation project is done now with that transfer? Or is that something they may come back later and say, oops, we need to do more
I
of that?
believe it's complete
I believe so.
from the information that
Okay.
we know.
Work is done.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
There
not,
was a part that was covered by insurance, and that
Okay.
was like,
but not phase one of 6 phases or something that
no.
gonna need to do more that we know of at this
yeah,
point?
we know of
Okay.
right now.
All
Absolutely.
right, thanks.
Nope. Nope. And then just a few quick words on expenses. We're monitoring the small departments, but the big departments right now is where our exposure would be, pretty much. IT's looking great. There are some overages within the lines, but Jay's looking within the budget to cover that. Same thing with operations. I talked to John Parent, and he said, we're looking good. So, this warm winter has been kind to us. That translates to DPW right now, snow and ice. We've spent about 64.6%, and last year we spent a total of 79%. So we're hoping that we don't get hit too hard there. Doesn't look like in the near future. And again, police and fire, we're monitoring just to see. OT is a real big fluctuation in both of those departments. But again, we'll keep an eye on it. And the only line so far that's over the 15,000 threshold, that's the selectmen policy, is the fire replacement equipment, which is due to that matching grant that we needed to come up with. So people are staying within their budget. And of course, if I see anything coming down the pike, I will let the board know, and advisory. Keep everybody informed.
Maybe an unrelated question. Have we closed out our audits that the feds are doing for our past ARPA and other expenditures? We'd filed claims for a lot of that. I thought there were still some things hanging out there. Is that all now wrapped up?
So we did have one claim that was approved this past month for FEMA, which now we can, I can submit our Category Z, which is for Lieutenant Neil's time, Lieutenant Aspazi's time, working on the FEMA claims. So we are really close, dangerously close to the
Okay.
finish on that.
I thought there were some questions about some of the vaccine payments that we'd filed for. Is that now closed out and we
Yeah.
got paid?
We actually did. It took 16 months.
Wow.
16 months
Great.
to get that done. But yes,
Good.
that,
Very good news. Thanks for all the good work
yes, I
to you
didn't
and
make a
others on that.
slide, but
Good, okay.
But yes, that was good news. So we still have a residual claim to put in Category Z, which they should cover at a full 100%. I just need to get beyond town meeting and then we'll do that.
What happens after Category Z? Go back to double A or something?
With that,
sounds
yeah,
fancy.
yeah, that's just the time it took to get all that
Yep.
paperwork together, so,
Good, thank you.
yeah.
Okay.
Final thoughts? This is just, we threw up there some big, larger picture thoughts. So we all know the FY25 budget. Very familiar that that's being still talked about a little bit. Town meetings creeping up on us. The DOR, again, the board was aware that they were engaged in a financial and policy review. So they have been sort of emailing people out there, depending where they are in that process. So they've been reaching out to like me, Jason Malinowski, certain, you may get emails at some point But that is probably made to,
These are follow-up emails after they left?
follow-up emails,
Okay,
yes.
all right.
Yeah. They're probably going through certain areas and they, need some more information or want to clarify something. But, so they've been active so that we know they're working. And that should be the May, June timeframe. We'll set up something with them and go through that. I know the annual audit and OPEB audits, everyone thought that was great last year, and we're going to do that again. We got held up because of the OPEB audit with some data and that holds up the annual audit because the annual audit needs the statements from the OPEB audit. So it holds up both of them. So that's all off to them now to finalize, so they should be doing that in the next month. So that's coming, probably right after town meeting. We can focus on that kind of stuff. And then there's the large projects ongoing that we'll be talking about in the future. Obviously, the Neary School project, which has some meetings coming up, some public meetings, library and community center. So just big picture things to keep, to keep the board updated. But, it's all about the budget right now in town meeting, so.
And Kathy, for the Neary Building School Committee Public Forum, is that this week?
There's two of them.
Yes, there's
Help me, somebody.
Monday
There's two of them.
and, shoot, sorry, looking at you.
But Vanessa has it
Monday
here.
is one,
Yeah,
okay.
Andrew, you're on mute.
Who said that?
Al.
I'm on mute?
Al, can you hear Kathy?
There you go.
Okay, so now I should have known this. Oh, it's this Thursday. I thought it was once February. So this Thursday is the first
Andrew,
one.
you're on mute.
Thursday, yes.
Al, Kathy's talking.
He's got his hand up.
Okay, so just to be clear, and this is really important, this is if you're going to have a say-so in this project, these are the 2 days to go. This is where they're trying to formulate the education program that they're trying to design at this new school, so they really need, parents, stakeholders to come to this. So 2 different choices. They're going to do the same thing both, so you don't have to go to both. One is February 29th, one is March 11th.
Right.
I think they're both at the Public Safety Building.
I think the March 11th is Trotter.
Oh, sorry, they're both at Trotter. Okay,
Trotter.
both at Trotter, sorry. And they both start at 7 o'clock.
Waving. I don't know if it's also-
So Hassan, is it us or is it him?
I can hear you now.
Oh, good.
Okay. All right. So everybody got
Thank you.
that? Very important. This project is starting to move really fast, so if you want your input to be heard, those are the 2 nights to go.
Correct.
Okay, I just thought we'd take an opportunity to make that public service
Oh, yeah,
announcement.
thank you, thank you.
Last thing is, I'll just mention is a little off top, not so much off topic, but I think, and Kathy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the only items that remain between advisory and the select board of financial differences are the, possibly the golf course, police budget, police budget?
Town engineer,
Engineer.
I'm sorry, the engineer.
Yep.
Because it was, yeah.
and they've got a difference in the road money
In the
than
road
we
money.
do right now.
So it's those 4 items. I just wanted to mention that, and I think, I don't know if we're going to try to care for those the next day or two, but
We are.
we'll see. That's it.
Okay, anyone have any other questions?
Nope, sounds good. I like the format. I think it's much more efficient. And again, if we have specific detailed questions, we can certainly follow up with.
Well, they send that to you separately.
Yeah.
So all the details there,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
just trying to keep this report
Yeah.
down to something that is digestible.
Right.
Yep. But you know where to find us if you have
Yes.
questions.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, yes.
We do, thank you.
We can
We're
be
always
found.
here, so.
Yeah, Bonnie, do you have a comment? Yep.
On the cemetery revenue, that's not the cemetery trust fund.
No,
No.
no.
What's the value in that? Do you have it?
In the cemetery trust fund?
Just a idea.
Perpetual care, or?
Yes.
I don't have that with me, I can.
It's a good amount. I don't.
That's what they pull out every year, buying just to support operations.
Right. I was just curious what that amount was and how it was
I
applied.
can get that for you, Mike.
That's all right.
I don't have it.
Okay. Well, thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian and Carla.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item that I'd like to turn to is Trails Committee request to expend ARPA funds for the Peninsula Trail Project. And just in terms of timing, is Jay here? Okay, so our town council, Jay Tallerman, is here to help us work through the discussion of the right of first refusal for the Northborough Road parcels. And he has another meeting at 8 o'clock. He's available by Zoom now. So what I intend to do is we'll deal with the Trails Committee issue, and then we'll advance on the agenda the Northborough Road project. And then for the people that are here for the Atwood, it's probably going to be later until after we do go through the Northborough Road project, where we discuss the annual town meeting warrant, but maybe it makes sense that one of the first things we'd address when we get up to there is discussion about the Atwood property. That makes sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Good idea.
So with all that said, we could bring the microphone to you if you want, or you could come up here.
You're getting very good with the crutches. Very experienced.
Sure. Yeah, yes, please. I get the microphone. I think you gotta break.
All right, Catherine McKee, Trails Committee Chair. So in your packet, we submitted a letter of request to spend ARPA funds that had been allocated to the Trails Peninsula project for engineering services. So I'm here to discuss any questions you have.
Kathy,
Need to be closer to the microphone, I think.
Do you want me to start over? So I'm Catherine McKee, Trails Committee Chair, and I've submitted to the Select Board a letter and request to spend ARPA funds that have been allocated to the Peninsula project on engineering services to get the project started. So that's why we're here today, to answer any clarifying questions.
yes, so, and just to kind of frame this, so we've got a ARPA allocation for this project, I want to say 144,000, and we reiterated our support for that at the last meeting. And then, so this is, you have a proposal from Beals and Thomas for this engineering work that's 64,000? 62,000. And then there is an additional item for engineering services of 14,000, right? Okay.
Correct.
So 76,000, right?
Yeah,
And then Kathy, do you want to take it from there?
So then add to that they are expecting about 10% of the cost going to expenses that are reimbursable, so that's another 6,000, right? So now we're up to 82. So I would recommend that to give Kat some leeway here, to approve 90 out of the 144 tonight, so she can get going with this.
Yep. And then part of the reason to do that is because funds need to be committed by the end of the year, and then there's a timing issue. We want to get this started so that the rest of the, if town meeting approves the CPC funds for the balance of this project, that can go even more quickly.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah, because we don't want her to have to wait for another meeting to approve $2,000 so she can keep going with this. So it seems like 90 should give her the leeway she needs to get it done.
Which is it's still within the 144,000.
Yeah, she's still,
Thank you.
Yes?
One question on page 18, I think it is. No, 18's the, wait a minute, 18's the, yeah, 18, 018, right up the corner. Optional services, geotechnical engineering services, just wondering what that was.
Yes, so we had that put in as an optional because that is the pro bono services that we expect to receive from Terracon. But just in case something comes up, we wanted that included in the quote to ensure that the services would be
thank you.
covered.
Yeah, I remember that.
I mean, I've followed these discussions. This seems to make sense to me. So.
Let's do it.
Okay. Kathy, do you want to make the motion?
so I make a
Does
motion,
Al have any questions?
I'm sorry, we keep forgetting.
Does Al have any questions?
No questions.
So So I'll make a motion to allocate $90,000 out of the ARPA bucket that's designated for the Peninsula Trail tonight for Kat to use per the proposal she's got from Beals and Thomas.
Second?
All right, all those in favor, Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Dennington, aye.
Cook is aye.
Stivers, aye.
Landry, aye.
Thank you
All right,
very much.
thank you very much.
We're excited.
Good luck.
Okay, so I think at this point, we're going to turn it over to, we're going to bring in Mr. Tallerman, to talk about the discussion of the 61A right of first refusal for the Northborough Road parcel. So here, right, so there's two parcels that are assessed as agricultural land, and then by statute, in exchange for having the lower assessed value, that the town has a right of first refusal if the property is considered for conversion to a non-agricultural use. And we got notice on January 29th of a notice of intent from the property owner to sell the two parcels. One's 10.7 acres and one's 8.76 acres. And I know that we also received a letter from the planning board, met to discuss this last night, and their view is that we should send back a notice stating that the notice that we received is not compliant with the statute, and requesting a reissued notice that has a per parcel price. So then, Jay, I was just going to kind of turn it over to you to just take it from there and present the issues as you see them.
Sure. So to round out kind of your description of this, Andrew, when you get a notice like this, the statute says you have 120 days to decide whether or not you want to exercise your option. If you do decide to exercise your options, there's additional processes, including town meeting votes, that would have to happen after that. During that 120 days, you would have to hold a public hearing at some point during the process so that folks could weigh in on it if you want to. It is not required. The select board could choose to either do nothing and let the 120-day clock expire if the select board has no interest in these parcels, or if the select board didn't have an interest in purchasing these parcels, they could formally waive by a letter to the folks who did the notice stating that you waive your rights with respect to that. Now, this one's a little peculiar, and it fits with kind of along a razor's edge, so to speak, on where the old version of the statute and the new version of the statute. Years ago, they amended the statute in a way so that towns would be able to ascertain what they would have to pay for any particular 61A property. And they did this because you are required to pay the exact price in a purchase and sale agreement. Now, there are some old cases that say when a property owner bundles two properties together, that purchase and sale agreement could either be considered bona fide, which means that you can move forward with it as is, and that was in the instance of two contiguous parcels, or for parcels that are less connected and less dependent on each other, a board can consider it not bona fide. Now, the changes to the statute, since those cases err on the side of being able to consider an offer not bona fide, but there is somewhat of a lack of case law on that subject. Here, there are two parcels. They are separated by a roadway, so they are not contiguous. They are each individually assessed as Chapter 61A property. So in that, the purchase and sale agreement, or the option here, only has an option to buy all of the properties. There is a defensible argument, in our opinion, that the board could say, hey, we don't think that we can operate under this purchase and sale agreement because, in fact, we may want to exercise an option over just one of the properties. And you are required, if you do decide to find that the offer is not bona fide for that reason, you would be required to send a notice to the property owner within 30 days. And I've gone to the lengths of drafting a sample notice for that purpose. However, I would state that if the town has no interest in either buying just one of these or or has no interest in buying either of them, i.e. it would be zero or both of them, then it probably doesn't make much sense to say that it's not a bona fide offer and then to just move forward on whether or not to exercise your option or even consider an option. But I leave that to the board's discretion. If you want to send a notice saying it's not bona fide, you would send that notice and there's a certain number of people that have to get it, and I could work with Vanessa and Mark on that, on who gets that notice. Or you could just proceed to work within the 120-day clock and decide whether or not you're interested in purchasing this property or not, or you can make that kind of decision tonight even. I will note that the price here per acre, and it's undeveloped with no infrastructure, acreage is quite high. And sometimes that comes into consideration by towns as to whether or not they want to match a price or not. Here, that's obviously your discretion, and ultimately it would be town meeting's discretion as to whether or not they'd want to pay that price. So I know that was a lot of material in just a short amount of time, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Andrew, I have a question.
Yes.
Jay, I've heard it suggested that the town might want to buy a piece of one of these parcels and put some affordable housing on it. The way I read this, that's really not an option for us. We either got to buy the whole thing, or maybe, as you're suggesting, either of the two parcels as a whole, as opposed to saying we like 2 acres of this particular parcel.
That's right. That's right. You couldn't divvy up the parcels. It is possible for a property owner to come and only seek to sell a portion of 61A property, in which case you'd have the option to buy that singular or that smaller piece. That is not what the property owner is doing here. It's a bundled purchase and sale agreement. Best case scenario, you could buy one or the other, either the 10-acre or the 8-acre parcel, potentially. But here it's structured as just one sale. Now, that said, Sam, if you decided to buy, when you do buy a 61A property, that doesn't mean you have to keep it in rural use. You could buy a 61A property and dedicate a portion of it ultimately for affordable housing and leave the remaining portion for some other use.
Right, yeah, but again, that's helpful, thank you. That was my understanding, that we didn't really have that option, at least at this point.
Right.
So,
That's right.
Thank you.
Marguerite, do you have any questions?
No, I'm actually in support of solar power.
Kathy?
So thanks, Jay, for being here tonight. So tonight, if we did not, first of all, we don't have $5 million, so I'm not in support of even going further with this. I just soon be nice and tell them that we've waived the ROFR. So just to reiterate what you said, if we know we're not going to do this, because in my mind we can't afford it, and that's what everybody else thinks with everything that we're facing us in this town in the next few years, wouldn't it just be appropriate to go ahead and let them know now and not delay it?
Yeah, I would say that's actually more common than folks think, because every town has a lot of 61A property and it comes up. And there are great opportunities through 61A. It's really a tremendous program and a way to either keep property under conservation or agricultural purposes, or to use the land for municipal structures or affordable housing. It's a great program, but I will state that if I got, confronted with 50 or so 61A issues per year, towns waive their rights. A good portion of them, the towns are generally focused on A, price, and B, contiguity. Does the property fit in with an overall a kind of conservation strategy or housing strategy or something like that. So there are a number of factors to go into, but it's not uncommon for a board to either waive their rights or choose not to take any action at all.
You have a hand up in the audience, Andrew.
Yeah, so before we go to any question. Okay, sure. So before we go to, Ms. Brosco has her hand raised. When I was digging into this, for this meeting, I just focused really on the price and was just kind of blown away by it. It seems so expensive that, Kathy, as you pointed out, there's no pot of money we have that's even approaching that. So, and also, if you did do the split, if you could do it if you tried to divine the intent of, okay, what was the price of one versus the other, the agreement seemed to answer it. You know, the smaller parcel would be still $2.1 million. And it's hard to justify that as an investment, even if, you know, it did have some interest in it as affordable housing, but just the price seems kind of a non-starter.
But we have no current plans. We know that the NERI decision is going to cannibalize a lot of things in the near future. I mean, that's a year away. So till we get the NERI community house decision made, I don't know where we find $5 million to do this and what we would do with it if we had it. Are you going to see what Al has got to say?
Well, I don't know if Al is participating in this.
He's got us muted.
Yeah.
Here he comes.
Mr. Chairman, I have to recuse myself
Yes.
in this discussion. I'm related to an abutter.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought. So, Lisa, Ms. Brastio's in the audience, has a question or a comment.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. I'm glad to see that this discussion taking place, Andrew. I appreciate that it is taking place, but I want you to consider that this is a unique opportunity. The town doesn't have a lot of 61A parcels left. And I think before the board makes a decision on this, I think it would be short-sighted to at least not hear from the other stakeholders, such as recreation, open space, affordable housing. You know, we've talked about doing meaningful affordable housing. And this is an opportunity for whatever the price point may be, $2 million, to at least not have the discussion, looking at the number of units that could potentially go in there for meaningful affordable housing. I think without even exploring it with the stakeholders is a big mistake. And I don't think that the taxpayers get the benefit of that. I know there's talk of where potentially the funding could come from. I can't say tonight, but I think at the very least, you should send a letter for the bona fide offer. And I think, you know, you start a discussion amongst the boards and committees out there that are potentially stakeholders in this to see if there is an interest before you just say no. I sat on the select board back in 2017 when the Deerfoot parcel came up, and that was 27.8 acres. And, you know, that in itself was a unique opportunity, and that had tremendous support. So at least follow the process, and before the select board just says no, because this is important to a lot of people, just as some of the other things you talked about, Kathy, the community center, and, you know, what's going to be going on with NERI. This is something that Mr. Hamilton has taken a strong stance on, that, you know, we have to do more for affordable housing, but we haven't had an opportunity present itself in a long time to be able to get a parcel that you truly could do something potentially meaningful on. So I would just implore you to send the letter, take a step back, hear from the stakeholders, and then make a decision, and just make sure that your due diligence is done. Thank you.
So then, just to follow what you're saying, Lisa, is that you'd still have the 120 days from the notice to then.
So if,
Complete
Jay,
the-
correct me if, sorry, Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, Jay, if they send out the letter that it's not a bona fide offer, does that not stop the clock?
It would, Lisa. I mean, I guess the other, look, it is also possible, and I don't want to get into legal cases here, that they may disagree with the conclusion of it being bona fide or not bona fide in terms of that letter. I think the third option there would be for the board to not take any action tonight and just schedule a public hearing on it.
I think that's a great idea.
And, that way, we're not getting involved in a dispute with the property owners. We're not slowing it down or speeding it up. We're just going to have a public hearing. And I know we have town meeting coming up, but that public hearing could be any time within the 120 days.
And Jay, there, by public hearing, you really mean just like a public meeting, not something where you're,
Well, you have to give notice and you have to give people the opportunity to be heard at it. So it has
like no
more of
getting-
the earmarks of a public hearing. It's a little less rigorous in terms of publication and participation than, say, a zoning hearing, but it is still public. It doesn't have to go on any longer than a regular agenda item, but you could hear from stakeholders at a public hearing at any time during the 120-day period.
and I think that Shopsy is having a meeting about this. I think it might even be tonight, where they were going to offer some comments on this as well. I mean, I still have some of the same deep skepticism about the price, but
Yeah.
I do too, but what Lisa says is reasonable. I mean, it's nice to hear how supportive of affordable housing, because we know we are. That's why we support the two 40Bs. So I'm happy to slightly pause. But I don't think I'll change my mind because we just don't have $5 million.
Yeah, I'm willing to listen also. I do have a question for Lisa. Lisa, I've actually tried to think about where we find the money to do this. I mean, do you have ideas of where that is out there? I mean, I'm stumped in terms of being able to find financial support for this, given, as Kathy suggests, all the other things we've got moving along now.
Yes and no, Sam. I think, if the board takes the opportunity to hear it at your next meeting and gives the stakeholders the opportunity, I'll also look at where I think potentially it may be able to come from, Sam. Off the top of my head tonight, no, I hadn't given it any specific thought on where, other than I just wanted to make sure that we at least took the advantage of doing due diligence on this opportunity, that's all.
Okay, yeah, and again, I think all of us think that there could be some great things that come from this, but as always, there's a budget crunch, and so how do you figure out how to pay for it? But I'm fine with giving people an opportunity to discuss this a little more.
I am as well.
We have another comment.
Mr. Pfaff?
Andrew Pfaff, 50 Oak Hill. I think Lisa makes a good point, and certainly I am concerned about the cost of it, but I don't think we know the cost until we go back and ask them to split the parcel. So my concern is, and I don't know if we would still have time, but to write a quick article for the warrant to put this on there, and if we needed to pull it at the last minute, but I'd hate to garner some support, the cost to come back, and then not be able to have to hold a special town meeting to approve, the cost or the purchase of the land, but maybe add it to the warrant, or whether or not we could do a special within the annual, but just something to think about.
All right. So Jay, the 120 days, is that to complete the entire, get town meeting approval for it too?
No, you have 120 days to exercise the option, and then you would then present them with a modified purchase and sale agreement that would have the closing terms and the town meeting contingency. Here, given the date of your town meeting, it would almost assuredly have to be a special town meeting at some point if you wanted to exercise the option within the 120 days.
So we may end up with two special town meetings because October's too late. But I don't agree with Mr. Pfaff as far as the way to do this. You can't. I don't think you can go to town meeting with an article without any explanation as to what you would do with the land. Just say, oh, trust us on this, and let's buy 20 acres of land at $5 million. I think you would get quite a bit of pushback. You would need 2/3 of a vote for that too. So I don't think putting it on this warrant is the right thing to do. And if we do end up thinking there's some benefit to doing this, then we'll have to do the special town meeting.
I don't recall when the 120-day clock runs out. Can you remind me of that? Jay, do you know?
It's from the date of receipt of the notice. So whenever, I know the date of the notice, I don't know the date of receipt.
I
It
don't
looks
remember.
like
Yeah.
it was late January that it was
Yeah, it looks like February
so-
5th, maybe,
120 days?
so.
So February,
so-
March,
so-
April, May.
I mean, it's
June-
4
June,
months
yeah.
essentially, so, February, March,
Early
April,
June.
May.
Okay,
Yeah,
good. So we've got a little bit of time.
yeah.
All right.
So no action, other than sending them a letter saying that.
Well, that's the decision
Modified.
we need to make now.
Well, if we really, if you're going to truly look at this, entertain it, it would be nice to know that we could buy one and not both. We're not, so that's, if you're really just trying to do affordable housing, you don't need them both, right? You just need a piece. So you can start trying to negotiate with him as far as carving off a piece too. So anyway, yeah, send a letter to get them separated so we know what each person.
I'd send a letter, say this is not bona fide, and try again. And if they argue about it, then we've still got some time to argue.
So Jay, even if there's a dispute about the position that we take in this letter, you still have the 120 days.
That's right. We would keep our eye on that 120-day clock anyway.
Okay. So I think I'm convinced to,
We've got a hand up in the back of the room there. Other side. Here in the room here.
oh, so focused on the computer that, okay, please.
Tim's going, he's going to beat you.
Yeah.
Frank Flaherty, 17 Leonard Drive. I was just wondering if it would be possible to figure out, if you want to do affordable housing, could you figure out how big a parcel you would need for that and make an offer to him, say, hey, could we buy something that size for a much smaller amount of money? Is that possible?
It would only be, you still would have to know what you're going to do with it. You can't just buy the land saying we're going to do affordable housing. We can't afford to build the housing ourselves, so you got to partner with someone, maybe more than one person, to get it done. So it's a lot of work into figuring this piece of it out. So it's not just buying the land and saying, okay, now let's do affordable housing. You kind of got to know where it's going from there.
Right, but it's been stated that you would need, if you were going to do an affordable, somebody brought it up as, if you want to do affordable housing, you could do it on a smaller parcel, right?
Oh, definitely.
I'm just saying, could you make, there's a lot of work involved in getting that done, but that would be a different decision. You could figure out roughly how much money that would be. It would not be $5 million, it would be much less.
Yeah, but we don't have the right to do that. We've got the right to buy maybe one parcel or the other, maybe the whole thing, but we don't have a right to go and say we want 1 acre.
Because that was part of my question. Can you make that proposal? You say, no,
Oh,
you're,
you can make it, but we don't have the legal right to do it. They'd have to say yes. So you'd have to ask them.
So there's an option agreement where the owner of this property granted another party an option to purchase it at a very defined price,
Oh, I see.
which is a high price.
Yeah.
So,
Right, I understand.
okay.
Yeah, it's a little more complicated than I had realized. Okay, yeah.
Yep.
So there's a pending deal in place, and you'd be,
correct, this is
They've
just
got
a
the
right
right
of
to
first
match
refusal.
that deal.
yeah.
Two other parties involved,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, my mistake, thank you.
Okay. So I think the consensus is to send the letter?
Right?
No? All right.
No?
Well, okay, so
Do we vote?
I move that the board send the owner the letter that Attorney Tallerman has prepared for us in our packet.
Effectively declaring the offer is not bona fide, and we'll
Until they
entertain a
split
bona
it.
fide offer, yeah.
Correct.
Split it, yep. Second.
Okay, so a roll call vote. So I guess Mr. Hamilton's going to abstain, right?
He's abstaining.
Okay, so Dennington, aye.
Cook a grudging eye.
Stiver's an enthusiastic guy.
Landry, nay.
All right. Okay, so thank you, Jay.
You're welcome,
Appreciate your help.
of course.
Okay. All right. So the next item on the agenda, under the chairman's report, I will just, one brief item. Sam and I attended last night, the public hearing of the MBTA Communities Act before the planning board. And it was more of a session that really finalized the language of the warrant article. There was a brief discussion about the actual mapping of the zones. You know, there were two developers who expressed disagreement with the location of the zones because they thought that other more developable parcels should be included in the MBTA Communities Act. But, you know, so they have finalized their MBTA Communities Act warrant article, but it's not in our packet for tonight. But I anticipate it will be in there for the warrant that we sign on Monday. So that's all I have to say about that. Anyone have anything under a members report? Okay. Vanessa?
Just an update that the fire chief recruitment process is moving along. We are due to schedule, we'll be meeting with some applicants rather early next week. So we're trying to keep that on track. And just another reminder that early voting is taking place downstairs for the primary, and that continues tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
All right. Okay, so then I guess the next item we can take up is the warrant. And then just out of respect for the time of the people that are here and for the Atwood Street neighborhood, I think we should just discuss, if I can get the number of it right.
So it's number 49.
Okay, number 49, which proposes transferring the site of the current no longer used water tower site to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which could then use it to do a project with Habitat for Humanity or another similar group to develop affordable housing. So I thank you for the letter. Here's my just own view, and then we'll kind of open it up, is that I think it's a fair point where this you know, hasn't had as much fulsome public discussion as it needs for an ultimate decision. I think a reason for that is because, and it's just kind of a bureaucratic issue, is that this was a discussion from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee about whether to have a warrant article that would authorize the transfer of the parcel to that committee. And that committee is a 7-member committee that 5 members of which are from the select board. So it's a lot of the control of that committee comes from the select board, but a lot of the meetings of that have occurred from that committee, which we've met kind of irregularly rather than in these kind of regular Tuesday night meetings. And ultimately, any action would require town meeting approval and would ultimately need a full discussion here. I think that, you know, this is something that's not ready to be presented at town meeting right now, so I am in favor of taking the warrant article off for consideration for March. You know, I think some of the, you know, a theme of your letter is I think that we're moving too fast, and I think sometimes from our perspective, just speaking for myself in terms of progress on affordable housing, we feel like we're moving too slow because the Affordable Housing Trust Fund has accumulated a significant amount of money, and over the past decade or so, the only, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the only real money we've spent is just about studies about how we might spend the money instead of actually doing something concrete. So there has been some kind of impatience or urgency on our part to do something, so to speak, right? And, you know, I think from what we're learning from this whole process this year is there's no easy way to do this. And the point that I want to stress before I turn it over to others is it has never been the intent to, if the town meeting was to approve a transfer of the currently town-owned site to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, that would simply immediately result in this kind of large-scale development. I think it's always been the intent that if we did something, it would be something kind of smaller scale that's fits within the character of the existing neighborhood with, you know, with landscape screening to minimize any impact on other abutters. You know, the one point I think you make in this letter about, you know, MBTA communities, and I don't know if I can pull it up on the screen now, but at the planning board meeting last night where they showed the maps of the MBTA communities zone, so there's one required part which must be within a half mile of the train station, and it really is not close to Atwood Street. It's, I had it here, but.
And along Southville Road, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I think the concerns about having there be a major impact of the MBTA Communities Act on Atwood Road is not a real concern. And there was the discussion about, that was presented about, you know, if we were to develop this, 5 different options, the one which had this like as referred to this as a MBTA Communities super lot, I think was the term. There was probably about 90 seconds of discussion about that before most people thought that's a total non-starter and was completely eliminated from the beginning. So, also, I don't live in this neighborhood, but I'm very familiar with it because I live in a neighborhood pretty close on the other side of Woodland Road. So, again, just stressing what I think we've had in mind is something that is smaller scale. I think you make a good point that, well, what impact are you going to make on the affordable housing, you know, crisis by building two houses, 3 houses? You know, probably a very marginal impact, but the collective effect of doing nothing in the current situation where we have not spent this money, town meeting appropriates this money to the community housing bucket of CPC funds, and then it just sits there and we don't use it. We don't think that's the right thing to do. So we're trying to balance that, right? And so for that reason, you know, the asking your letter where we should abandon this effort altogether, I don't think we should abandon the effort altogether. I think it's clearly not ready to be presented at town meeting in March, but I do think it certainly warrants, you know, now we have your letter, and I think we should continue to stay in touch with the neighborhood so that there's more information flowing about what options we might consider. And I know Al
has his hand up.
Yeah, I'm sure Al will want to speak to this too.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this was put on the warrant a few months ago, probably with an excess of optimism, to be perfectly honest. What has been going on to date is an attempt to understand whether it is even possible to develop the site. We've done a little bit of preliminary work on septic capacity, and fairly early on in the process, it became clear that it was possible that there would be contamination from the old water tank site. We received a report a couple of days ago that said, yes, in fact, there is lead paint contamination, and it's going to have to be dealt with regardless of whether, you know, we do anything with that site or not. I'm meeting with Mr. Cundiff tomorrow at about 1:15 to just begin to understand what that means. We've really not engaged in a lot of community outreach because we don't yet know whether this site is even developable. And that's really what we're trying to do is A, figure out whether it is possible. And then if it is, then we would have to engage because we need a 2/3 vote at town meeting to do anything. And that's a tall order. And so we would definitely engage, and I'm in full support of withdrawing this article at this time. There was some concern expressed about 2 executive session meetings. I want to assure you that the subject of those two executive session meetings was unrelated to Atwood. There was another parcel which the Affordable Housing Trust Fund has an interest in and may yet have an interest in. And so those two, the minutes from those two meetings are still subject to executive session. At the appropriate time, they will be released. So, at this point, I'm in support of withdrawing this article because, frankly, we don't know whether we can develop this parcel. I will also mention that Ms. Landry and I will be at the parcel at 2:00 tomorrow, meeting with one of the abutters, and if anybody else, it's public property, and if you're welcome, you are welcome to come and express yourselves, and as we walk the property and discuss, what is and what is not going on. And at this point, there are more questions than there are answers, and until we have answers and a specific proposal we could even begin to discuss, there's not a lot of things to be done. I will also, assure you that as of this speaking, to the best of my knowledge, there is no plan to convert 21 Highland into affordable housing or any other form of housing. We have appointed a committee to study what we might use for that. And while there has been some discussion about possibly taking the property around 21 Highland, I'm personally utterly not in favor of that, of taking parkland away from a densely inhabited neighborhood. So that's the status. There's really, this was put on the warrant a few months ago with an excess of optimism, and if there's one thing I have learned over the years is that being optimistic about the pace of government is probably a fool's errand. So that's really what's going on at the moment.
Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, I have more to say, but I think I should just let the rest of the board comment.
Quick comment from me. I support withdrawing this one, hearing more what people have to say, although I will reinforce, Andrew, some of your comments. I think it's important for us to actually move forward on affordable housing one way or another. I'm certainly sympathetic to the density concerns, although the conversations I've heard say that we would be looking at one house, a duplex or something like that there, which to me at least is not a substantial burden on the neighborhood. And I would hope that we might find a way to do that, but not at all clear at this point. So happy to listen more and look for this and other opportunities to actually build some affordable housing. Thanks.
Just a couple of comments having to do with Mr. Orden's point, or the point of your letter. Affordable housing has become, and excuse my laryngitis, something that feels out of control to a lot of people in town. They know that we need it, and I feel like I totally sympathize with the neighborhood, because you have a neighborhood and then all of a sudden there's this thing looming over you that seems to be not something that you understand or has been explained. And I think that the Select Board and the Affordable Housing Trust Fund group would take a lesson from this and understand that it needs to be a conversation with the neighborhood before anything gets done. So I'm totally in favor of taking this off the table and out of the warrant. Thank you.
Yeah, I also think that, Mr. Hamilton does deserve a lot of credit for, he's devoted a lot of energy to this, and we've already, in terms of, we had one kind of infamous discussion in the last board about one particular site, which is at 5 Corderville Road, about where we there was a really divided view about whether to try to buy it and use Affordable Housing Trust Funds Committee, Affordable Housing Trust Fund funds to purchase that property. That's now been knocked down and is now just regular property. This other property that Mr. Hamilton was alluding to, we thought we were close on that. That didn't happen. This thing which just came up, you hear, it's like several $1 million. So there's this is a difficult, process that we're going through. I still think that we should keep trying. I mean, one thing I think that's worth considering is when I went to the Massachusetts Municipal Association annual meeting, and I spoke to someone from the Massachusetts Housing Partnership who, talking about this, said you really should rethink like the whole structure of how you set up your Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee. And so I think that's something we should work on. We've talked about it. We just got to make progress on it for a fall town meeting. And also, this is also an opportunity, just a quick update on the South Union School, because I know there's people here that are interested in that too. So the longer story of that is, it's an older building. There was a committee that worked for at least a year that studied the possibility of, if there was no longer a need for that building, could it be developed into affordable housing? One of the takeaways from that was to do that in an economical way, you'd probably need to develop the rest of the site. There was actually an article that was going to be presented at the town meeting about 3 years ago to do that. So a lot of people, it never made it that far for a completely unrelated reason, but I don't think the neighborhood would have supported that. If you were to try to develop the building it's not feasible to turn the existing building into affordable housing without developing the rest of the site. So that, we seem to have no longer really pursuing that angle, but St. Matthew's Church has expressed interest in acquiring the building and would basically, I think, I'm optimistic that they would be interested in preserving the, historic nature of the building, using it for a Montessori school and a basketball court. So that is still an option out there, but because we also want to consider other options than that too, we have this committee with representatives of Recreation Commission, Planning Board, open space, we still need to, historic, and also there's going to be some open seats for people that live within a half mile of the school, which we haven't filled yet, so if anyone is interested in serving on that committee. So I completely understand this feeling like there's a lot going on. MBTA community, South Union School, and this Atwood thing. But they're all, in our view, really moving quite slowly, and there was going to be this possibility of a bunch of these things considered at the March town meeting, but now it looks like none of them will be. So that's pretty much an update on what's going on. So hopefully, I hope that allays some concern that the MBTA community's zoning change would have a dramatic impact on this street. Based on the maps from last night, I think they would have it's more along Southville Road and not than south of Southville Road. The discussion with the South Union School is something that is very heavily dependent on the decision that happens with the Neary Building School in spring 2025. And Mr. Hamilton gave a pretty good summary of where the whole old water tower site stands. So I hope that's at least provides some information about where things stand. Yes?
That's long, but I haven't commented yet, let me just say
Okay.
a couple of things to not repeat what you guys said, but add something so to this group has come out tonight to make sure they know as much as they can. I just want to make sure everybody heard, we haven't talked about Atwood in executive session at all, so this idea that we've been non-transparent, we've talked about it all in public meetings, and it may be Affordable House Trust, maybe this, but we have talked about it. But more importantly, the decisions that we're about to make in this town are all, concentric circles that do overlap. So the rebuild of Neary School has to happen. Neary School is 53 years old. That's going to happen in one form or the other, and there's different permutations as far as what we can do here. So there's basically three, and two of those close Finn School. So I don't know if it's 1 out of 3 that it stays open, but it's least probably more likely than not, just given that 2 of the 3 are closing Finn. Finn may be closed. If Finn gets closed, then the recommendation is that we turn Finn into a community center. So there's been a whole committee that we're about to disband tonight that's come back and recommended how to use Finn as a community center. I'm not sure if you caught that meeting. If we do that, the rec department, which is now in 21 Highland, would move to Finn. That's pretty much a fact. The other department in there has a home too that they like a lot too, so they probably would move. So we would be left with a building on 21 Highland with no town use at all. Again, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen to it, but that Finn decision really does inform a lot of things as far as your neighborhood. So I just wanted to say that since you're here, you might as well make sure that you leave us as much info as possible.
And part of that is because the South Union School currently houses the Youth and Family Services, which has the potential to move to the Flag School when the Historical Society vacates the Flag School to go to its new place in Fayville Hall.
Yep.
And then the Recreation Department, if Finn were to close, then you have a bigger Neary, then there would be the potential of Rec could move to Neary. I'm sorry, could move to Finn. So that's how the whole jigsaw puzzle works. And then the town would not need South Union School.
For its
Yes.
departments.
All right, quickly, one of the original members of SHOPSI, and also as a trust fund member, working with developers in this town and with CPC funds and development funds, we were able to build a home on Gilmore Road. We were able to purchase a home on Pocketville Road, work with Assabet to redo that home. So we have done things over the years, but what we did do, we involved the community members in the area right from the get-go. Now, when I did read that article that was prepared for town meeting, what would concern me was there was no number that identified the number of units, which probably caused some of this panic, which I don't blame. So it's okay to say what our intentions are, but from what I've learned over the years working with there was one 40B that I was not directly involved with. That's off of Oak Hill Road. Not knowing who's going to replace the individual that's saying what they're saying today in a public forum, you have turned over that parcel of property to another group of individuals who mean very well as far as community, the spirit and everything. But laws change, individuals change, their philosophies also change. So I encourage you, if you're going to bring an article in the future on any parcel in this town, that you at least disclose right up front how many units you plan on putting on that property. Since you have stated maybe one, maybe a duplex, that should be stated very clearly.
That's good advice.
Yes.
Yeah, Ms. Faniff, that is in fact the plan. And it was simply, we were not able to make adequate progress on the plan prior to this meeting out of a excess of optimism.
Good to see you again. Destin Heilman, 7 Harris Drive. Yeah, I think the main issue for me, so I should also say that I think technically I'm not sure that I'm an abutter to that property because it's within 300 feet, and I think our backyard is within 300 feet of the rear of that property. But I think the biggest part of this, optimism or not, is that it's related to what Ms. Cook said about one of the previous discussion points you were having, is we wouldn't buy a piece of property unless we knew what to do with it. We wouldn't buy a piece of property unless we had a plan and we knew what we were going to put on it. And that's precisely what we have here. It's not a purchase, but it's a transfer into, and correct me if I'm wrong, a trust that is not beholden to town meeting. So decisions can be made later on that would not require an approval of town meeting, and that's the scary part. And although, we'd like to trust you, but things change. And, working with us, having a warrant article in the town that says this is what our plan is, this is what we want to put on there, and we've gained the support of the people who live in that area, is the way to go. So I understand that this was wishful thinking, but I think, in retrospect, wait a bit longer before it goes on there. The Finn School is also part of our neighborhood. The people that live on Atwood on the opposite side is where this parcel is. Their backyards abut where the Finn School is. And so we've been watching that carefully as well. And like we said, it's in the letter, it feels like a lot. It feels like a lot because we were talking about the South Union School. We were talking now about this parcel. We're talking about Finn. MBTA Communities is going on. And it's just a ton. It's tough to take. I think, Mr. Dennington, when you said that, you know, the plan, or the thinking rather, right, was to have a couple of houses or a duplex, something like that, that would match the area. I don't think any of us are necessarily opposed to something like that. We just want to talk about it. But I would argue that that's different from what's been discussed in Shopsy, and that's different from what's been discussed in the affordable housing meetings, where they have talked about complexes that are larger than that. And that takes away that trust. When we're, you know, going to go to a town meeting and we're going to vote to have it put in the hands of the Affordable Trust, which we can then not control, when they've talked about parking lots and larger complexes, that doesn't instill us with a lot of trust that it would be a 2-unit building. But I'd also argue that you said it would probably have marginal impact. And I would just urge you to weigh the marginal impact that that would have there against however it's going to affect the community. Because I see the point, that even if a marginal impact has, we want to raise the affordable housing in town, absolutely. But if that marginal impact is offset by people having to move, or people having to be disrupted in that town, or by someone moving in there and finding it's completely unsafe because it's on a blind corner right there, or bend, all of that is washed away. So I appreciate you listening.
Well, I think that this has been a good discussion, because there's some, I think Mrs. Faniff made a really good point, and I think Dr. Howland, he made an excellent point of that, okay, so this property is currently town-controlled property. And one thing is, unlike a parcel that was deeded for recreational use or something like this was a water tower site, and now, I mean, another thing we did in looking at this was, is there any other potential town use of this site? No. So that's one of the things that led to the interest in thinking about it for affordable housing, is to, it really has to do with kind of the order of operations, as Mr. Hamilton was saying, the exact size and things like that was something that was considered as just like the blank first transferred to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So it sounds like the consensus is, from what I'm hearing, is it's more appropriate to think about everything together and then present it in that way at town meeting. That's what I'm hearing, and I think that's pretty
So the people
sensible.
voting know what they're voting for as far as what we would end up with. But to maybe end this, to the gentleman in the back, that I couldn't hear what you said your name was when you came up a minute ago. The reason things like this are appealing to us, and what Al has worked so hard to identify parcels that the town owns that might be developed, is because we've already owned the land. We don't have to pay $260,000 an acre for the land. So we throw the land in the pot. You go to a Habitat or something like that, they throw a lot of labor into the pot. We throw a little bit more money to buy materials, and we end up with a truly affordable house that costs us nowhere near what the value is. So that's what we're trying to do, is try to leverage this money to get as much as we can out of it, because we've got a town where the average price of houses right now is $900,000. And with interest rates being what they are, it really does exclude a lot of people from coming new into Southborough right now.
And just one last thing about, you know, how it feels almost kind of scary that so many different things are happening. Another way of viewing it is, it's a generationally important decision coming up next spring about all the town's capital assets, because building a new Near East school opens up this possibility for using Finn as a community center. Of course, there's price tags associated with all these, but I would really encourage anyone, if you haven't already, look at the final report that the Community Center Exploration Committee did. It was posted on my Southborough, right?
I'm just smiling because Dr. Hyman's wife was on that.
I know that.
So
I
I'm
know
sure
that.
he's seen that report.
You can
I know
go
that.
on.
So I think it's
Personal copy.
excellent work, and it really gives you some information about some of the different options that are available. I think they're really exciting, and there are ways that you could have a community center, and this is be a building that looks pretty much the same as the existing building, that would have a lot of more interesting uses, and the price tag of converting the existing building to a community center versus trying to buy another parcel of land to do that from scratch, it's much more efficient to do it the way that the Community Center Exploration Committee recommended. So that's, I think, all I have to say on that.
One more comment there.
Yeah. Yes?
How you doing? I'm Carl Elvedi. I live at 22 Atwood Road, which is abuts this parcel that you're speaking of. I'm just concerned about the lead. So at what point in time and how will we be notified? We've been told tonight that there is contamination there, so I'm a lot concerned about that. So what's the protocol of telling the neighborhood the findings? How does that work?
Al, do you want to speak to that, or?
Sure. I'm meeting with this information came to us a couple of days ago, and I've been out of town. I'm meeting with the superintendent of the DPW tomorrow at 1:15 to try and get an answer to just that question. My limited understanding is it's there. I don't think it's going anywhere, but and I think the next step is actually going to be some additional testing. By the way, there's good news here too, because the other thing that we were looking for was PCBs, and there was no detectable PCBs on the property. So there's a smidgen of good news in with that. And we will be discussing what we have to do with that in public. And I agree with you. I think we should have a meeting to inform the neighborhood of what's going on there. If I lived in that neighborhood, I would be telling my kids not to play there right now.
On the lot.
Yeah.
Can I interject? As I understood it, 2 days ago, PAR Corporation sent a report to the DPW, and it was shared with the, most of the contamination is down between 12 inches and 24 inches in the ground because the rain has moved it down over the last 30 years, all right? So it's not on the surface, it's not blowing around. And in fact, the report said if they had only tested the top 12 inches, it would have been negative for lead. So what's there is way down. What will be done about this? I don't know. They're going to have to decide what the best thing is. Do you just leave it there? Because it's not blowing around in the wind, if that's...
Does it not get in the water? Like,
I think we should
I don't know a
wait
lot
before we
about
go.
that.
I don't know about the
I guess
water.
my question is...
Our water-
Say something, we're
When will
not,
we-
we've barely read this email, so I don't think we should talk about this.
Right.
Our water
Yeah, I
comes,
agree.
our water comes from the MWRA, so water source has nothing to do with this.
Okay, so
Water
my
comes from
question is
Quabbin
when
Reservoir.
and how will we be notified of what went on there?
This is clearly a thing that needs to be shared
Okay.
with the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Carl, I'd be happy to send you a copy of the letter that we got, which is of course a public document. And if you could take it on to share it with the neighborhood. Again, we have just identified that we have a potential issue, but we don't yet know the breadth and depth of that issue and what, if anything, we need to do to mitigate that issue. So there's, as I say, we've been trying to figure out whether this lot is even qualifies as a building site, and now we've got more challenges.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thanks. Yep.
I think just from the perspective of the neighbors that in moving forward and questions that you could ask the DPW about this stuff and remediating it is, does it mean if it's that deep that it would have been in the water? This water tower came down 35 years ago, something like that?
Dr. Harlan, our water comes from the Quabbin.
Oh, I understand that,
so
Sam. Yeah, no, I
our
totally
drinking
understand
water.
that. I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
I'm worried about the fact that it's the top of a hill, and 35 years ago, that lead would have gone downhill as it followed the water into the wetlands that are down by Corderville Road, which are still there.
Okay.
So I don't know how far it's gone. That's my biggest concern. Is it in our backyards? Has it gone down toward the wetland 30 years ago? So I'm just wondering, if we need to talk to them about testing beyond the site.
So, Mr. Cundiff.
We have Mr. Cundiff on the line, so.
Good.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't know why I can't get my video to work here, but anyways, Bill Cundiff, DPW Superintendent. I just wanted to allay some of the concerns. We don't know the full scope of the issue at this point. The reason that the layer of lead was located below the surface elevation was because when they took the tank down, they had to do some grading to level the property in that area. To my knowledge, the material that was used for painting the tower has not leached or moved. We're doing additional testing to quantify whether that's even a possibility. Certainly, as we get more information, we'll share that and make people aware, but I don't expect it to be an issue.
Okay, so I think we probably accomplished as much as we can about, the simple vote was just we're going to withdraw the article. So should we vote to do that? Okay. I move that the board withdraw from our draft warrant Article 49, which is the transfer of Atwood Road property to the Southborough Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Second.
Okay, we'll do this roll call vote. Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Dennington, aye.
Stivers, aye.
Okay. So thanks. So now the rest of the thing, we're going to be discussing a whole bunch of other things that don't have to do with that. But so I don't know if you you can bring out the popcorn and watch the rest of the meeting, but or we could use this, take a quick little recess.
Take a break.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Recording stopped.
Are we back? We need, all right. So we're next going to turn to the consent agenda, and I'm going to hold a couple items here. First, I'm going to hold, Mr. Stivers, you're going to hold A?
Yeah, A for me.
Okay, and I'm going to hold B and C. E, and then we'll have Ms. Pellegrino come and talk to us about that. I'm going to hold H. That's all I got.
Only A for me.
Oh, and I'm also going to hold I with respect to the October 26 minutes. I would hold the release of those minutes, but I would not hold the approval of them. Okay, so
we're going to vote on D, F, and G, I think.
D, F, and G.
Not quite.
Okay, so I move that the board approve consent agenda items D, F, and G.
Second?
All those in favor? Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Dennington, aye.
Focus aye.
Stivers, aye.
Landry, aye.
Okay, so Bill, we approve the revised job description for the civil engineer position. So you can probably, unless you want to watch the rest of our meeting, you probably don't need to stay on. But I know it's kind of ironic. You probably stayed here for that item and then ended up talking about something completely different. But that's how it goes. All right. Well, so thanks, Bill. Okay. Yes, Becky.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
We can hear you.
Okay, so included in the select board's packet is our application to the Massachusetts School Building Authority for hopefully for a project for the Trottier roof. The Trottier roof is in need of repair, and so we are going through the MSBA program so that the town would be eligible to receive partial funding through the MSBA grant for this project. And so what is required tonight is for the select board to approve this application. The Southborough School Committee did approve this at their February meeting as well.
Okay. I mean, I am in favor of proceeding.
So Becky, do you want us to read this paragraph and have it officially approved?
Yes, please. The MSBA is very particular about the reading of the vote language that is used.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to have the following language approved to be included in the submission to the MSBA. This is regarding Trottier School. So the Select Board resolves that it, having convened in an open meeting on February 27th, 2024, prior to the SOI submission closing date, the Select Board of Southborough, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form dated February 2024 for the P. Brent Trottier Middle School located at 49 Parkerville Road, which describes and explains the following deficiencies and the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future for replacement of the EPDM and shingled roof systems under priority number 5. The replacement of the 90,000 square foot roof system is necessary due to its age, ruptured seams, punctured membrane, and water damage. And hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, the MSBA in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant or any other funding commitment from the MSBA, or commits the town of Southborough to filing an application for funding with MSBA. So we're not stuck with this, in other words. Okay, so that's the language. That's my motion, so we need a second. Okay.
I'll second it.
Mr. Hamilton?
Actually, I do have a question. Shortly after this school building was built, there were significant problems with the roof. And now, 25 years later, there are significant problems again. Are we sure we have a good roof system?
So it's my understanding that the roofing system that was put on during the renovation was not a commercial roof. And so that's led to many of the problems at Trottier. We have done a number of patches over the year. Most recently, I believe it was last year, where we did some patches because we were sustaining water damage in some of the classrooms. So we have engaged a contractor, Garland. They're actually somebody that we've worked with on other roofing projects throughout the district, and they have done a full analysis and have provided us with details as to what they believe would be the most appropriate roofing system for Trottier.
Okay, I mean, I'd like to think we are headed towards a longer-lived solution, although I will never suggest we put a slate roof on. Sorry.
That was option 2, Al.
Funny. So again, this doesn't obligate us to do anything. We're just putting the statement of interest in.
Understood.
MSBA comes back, we can say no if we don't like what they say. So, okay, motion's been made, it's been seconded, it's been discussed, right, Andrew?
Yes, so, Al, you ready to vote?
Yep.
Okay, what's your vote?
Yeah, aye.
Okay, Dennington, aye.
Cook, aye.
Stivers, aye.
Landry, aye.
Okay, so that takes care of agenda item E.
E.
So we've dealt with D, E, F, and G. Okay, so A, you had changes to the minutes?
Yes, I had a few. Line 62 and this is for February 6th. Line 62 and 63, I think it could be a little clearer there. The total was $603,750 in line 62. And then in 63, I'd say revolving fund, comma, leaving a CPC funded amount of $553,750. So it was two pieces there.
Can you, make sense to type it out and give it to Vanessa?
Yeah, I'll type it up and give it to you. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Okay, good.
And then at lines 88 and 90, two different article numbers there referenced. One was 48 and 49, the other was 49 and 50. I have several versions of the warrant, so I'm not sure what the right reference is, but they ought to be whatever the current one is, so. Line 121, I would say improve.
You're just not going to be able to figure that out, Sam. We need to tell her what to change it to.
Okay, Vanessa, can you figure out what to change it to? Okay. Line 121, I would say improvement, the committee name, and DPW at the end of the line, so DWP. And then line 148, I would say the board will set rates, which we'll do in March. And then line 168, for clarification, we should say tiered water rate system, just tiered rate system. I'll send you a note on this, Vanessa, all of it, so that's all I had for that one.
All right, then did you have some on the February 13th?
Nothing on 13th for me.
Okay. I move that the board approve the open session meeting minutes for February 6th and February 13 as amended.
Second.
All right, Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Dennington, aye?
Stivers, aye.
Landry, aye.
Okay. So for B and C, all I wanted to say on this is Vanessa had noted to me that these places don't yet have their Board of Health inspections. So, but we could approve the common vic licenses and then hold them, the issuance of them until those inspections are
Contingent
completed.
on passing.
Correct.
Contingent on passing those
Yeah.
inspections.
Are these late?
No, it's been more about change of manager, I believe. So that's why it's happening in the middle of the year versus when you do all your other licenses in December.
Okay, so they've got a license right now to operate?
I believe so, yes, because it's been a change in owner, I think.
Okay, so we think they did it in December like they should have, and this is being
Yes,
done because
yes,
it's
it's been
changed
changed
mid-year?
since
Okay.
December.
So we're not, in other words, we're not shutting them down, why?
No,
Okay.
no. So we will hold the licenses downstairs that you can sign this evening, but it will be held until they've completed all their other inspections.
Okay, do they know they need to do that?
They do.
Okay.
So I move that the board approve the issuance of the common vic licenses for Brazza Pizza and Eros Pizza, contingent on successful Board of Health inspections.
Second?
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Dennington, aye.
Cook is aye.
Stivers, aye.
Landry, aye.
On consent agenda, item H, I just hold these, I have edits, which we'll need to discuss then in executive session. And then on I think we can both approve and release the executive session minutes for January 4, 2024, but,
Second, right, January
Is that-
2,
yeah, what did I say?
4.
January 24th.
January 2nd, 2024. But I would, hold the executive session meeting minutes for October 26, 2023, but I'm okay to approve them.
So approve them and just not release them?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that all?
Okay.
So I'll break it into two motions. So I move that the board approve the executive session meeting minutes for October 26, 2023, but not release them at this time.
Second?
Okay. Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Dennington, aye.
Cook is aye.
Stivers, aye.
Landry, aye.
And I move that the board approve and release the executive session meeting minutes for January 2, 2024.
Second?
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Dennington, aye.
Cook is aye.
Stivers, aye.
Landry, aye.
Okay. I think that takes care of the consent agenda, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right, so the warrant, let's see. I was looking at the cheat sheet and thinking, you know, what is left to do here? So here's my kind of overview. So Article 5, the budget, the big one, is not in the warrant. And there's still going to be some changes coming into this warrant before we finalize and sign it on Monday. I mean, the main, Kathy, why don't I'll turn it over to you for the three things that are still live on the budget.
All right, and Andrew Pfaff from Advisory is here too, so he can reiterate or contradict me. Does everybody know why Andrew's saying Monday? Remember, we're meeting on Monday instead of Tuesday next week because of the election, right? Okay, so I'm going to do the easy one first. Mr. Condiff has signed off on this. Jason Malinowski of Capital has grudgingly signed off on this. Advisory is recommending that we reduce the road money for fiscal year '25 to $450,000, which is its normal number for the last few years, from $650,000. Mr. Condiff is okay with this. We took a look at the road money that's available between the Chapter 90 built-up amount and what's in our old road warrant articles, and there it looks like, and this is a rough number, that is probably close to $2.5 million that's unencumbered, and he's already encumbered part of that money with the two culvert studies. So that's already out of that number. So Mr. Condiff thinks he's got plenty of money to do the work he wants to do for fiscal year '25. We all know that we could throw millions of dollars at the roads if we wanted to and still not get everything done we need to get done. Question is, does the select board want to vote to reduce the road money for fiscal year '25 to the number that advisory has voted for, that they are going to recommend to town meeting?
If Bill is okay with it, I think we need an awful lot of road work done.
Yep.
On the other hand, if Bill thinks he's got ways to make that process work,
I also begrudgingly
prefer to have it.
go along with it. You know, every time we just kind of hold back on capital this year, it just means that there's going to be more of a year-over-year increase next year.
More pressure.
But 200 is not going to get the job done either. So, we're talking about possibly, once Beta gets its work done, maybe floating a bond to
Yep.
really just do a lot of work all at once and not do this, a little bit at a time. My road will never get done if we do it that way. It's just too much money. So we've still got that discussion to be had once Beta gets its work done. So
Yep.
I'm in support of reducing this to 450, given that Bill was perfectly fine with this.
I agree. I think over the next year, we need to come up with, I think, a plan. And, that probably involves bonding. It should probably involve sidewalks. And we have underinvested in our road and buried infrastructure for a very long time, unfortunately.
Okay. Do you think we need to take a vote on it?
I do, because we
Okay,
voted for
sure.
it. So we're going to basically amend the capital article to reduce it by $200,000 specifically allocated to the road funds.
Second.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Dennington, aye?
Cook is aye.
Stivers, aye.
Landry, aye.
Okay, now that's number one. The second potential difference, I don't know what you call a 3-3 vote at advisory, so they're on the fence about the engineer that Bill would like. We voted 5-0 to add it, so we're convinced. So I'm not saying that we should change that. I actually think we should not change this. I think what should be in the warrant should be the engineer being in there. Bill is going to advisory tomorrow night, though, for the specific purpose of talking to them in more detail about the position. So I don't know what Andrew's plans are, but my guess is they could potentially take another vote. So right now, it's a tie. It's not like they rejected, it's a tie. And we have fully supported it. So I don't propose making a change to that tonight till we see what happens tomorrow night with Bill in advisory.
Sure.
Okay, so that's number two. Number three is a hard one, which is the police budget. So hear me out, and Andrew can amplify this if I say it wrong. So the position that advisory has taken is we don't know enough to add anybody. We need to go back and do what we did 20 years ago, which is hire someone that knows what's going on to do a study of the police department and the appropriate staffing in 2023, 2024, as far as what we need for our police department to do its job effectively, safely, et cetera. A lot of towns have done the same thing we've done, which is add body cameras, so they've got the same issues we do as far as all this new paperwork, review, et cetera, that has to be done, no one having time to do it. So I still fully believe, I'm convinced that we need what Ryan Newell says, but I'm willing to see what happens if we were to do the study and look at the study, and that would be our support for what we recommend. On top of that, I don't believe that this town meeting is the right time to discuss dispatch. I think that if we were to go back to a level service police budget that advisory is recommending, and then make the statement, we are definitely going to have a fall town meeting, and one of the priorities of that town meeting is to get this regional dispatch decision discussed at town meeting, made, but we'd have more time to truly see what the recommendation is, what you guys are going to recommend to the rest of us as far as how to do this. I think we've got time to do it, but I think it would be a much more coherent, informed discussion if we wait till then and not have it at this town meeting. Now, it doesn't mean that the citizens' petitions that are warrant articles that are there, they're still not going to want to talk about it, but I just think this whole conversation about staffing is related to this, and so it needs to be had at one time, and we need to know where we think we're going to do that. So that's advisory's recommendation. So they've got a budget proposed right now that has it totally backed out the lieutenant, and they've got $25,000 in the police department budget to fund the study. So that's what they've done with the rev cap. And by the way, the rev cap doing that comes down to a 3.96% year-over-year increase. Okay.
Yep.
So we voted for the budget with lieutenant in there. Remember, it was a 3-2 vote, and it was 2 against it because those two wanted even more in there. Not
Yeah, that was
not
my
that they
view.
didn't want the
Yeah.
lieutenant in there. They wanted lieutenant in there and wanted more for dispatch.
Nope, I wanted actually 2 officers there.
Okay, so in other words, you weren't voting against lieutenant, though. You were voting for more
That's
instead
correct,
of
yeah,
less.
yeah.
Okay.
And in fact, I see dispatch as related, but not so tightly tied to what Chief Newell is asking for in terms of his internal staffing. I think a lieutenant and the other position as well. So I would support 2 additional positions, and then we'll deal with dispatch later.
But would you support for this town meeting, leaving the budget flat as far as services go, so it just has the normal increases in it, and then having the study, accelerating the study, getting it done ASAP, so we've got plenty of time to digest it,
Yeah.
and have a maybe more supported recommendation for the fall town meeting than what we have right now?
I mean, I think that's a very unattractive option, but, you know,
So then thinking about to actually really make sure that this staffing study gets done ASAP, because the one thing, and I don't know if I was reading your mind about this staffing study, this staffing study was from 2000.
But it took us a while to get it,
Took
took a while.
18 years or something.
Yes, it did take a while to get up to the recommended
So it's not
number.
really a good model of, like making, whereas I support the additional lieutenant position. I just do. But, you know, I think that there's a good point there of where part of the justification for it has to do with the, you know, body camera issue, and it just, every time it's come up, it has generated this discussion about technology, and they're, you know, they're fair questions, right? I think there's other reasons to support the additional lieutenant position too, and I think Chief Newell, you know, I know some people don't think that the what other towns do issue is, you know, compelling, but there really isn't another town that has a public, of our size, that has a public records officer just in the police department. Or, so, I mean, the long and the short of it is, I think I can grudgingly go along with this, but it really has to be that this, would we have the appropriation for this staffing study? That would need to happen now.
We've got money already sitting in the engineering consulting article. There's $25K in it right now, so we could do it now with that money. And then, but where one of the articles proposed adds 5,000 to that, because we're trying to get back up to 30, so we'd have to change that number to make it 30, to get it back up to 30 if we use the money right now to do it, so we don't have to wait till July 1st.
Just
I would take exception to that. A police study is not engineering.
Yes, that's the point I was going to make.
It's a broad thing. It's
So-
engineering, management, consulting. It's broad as far as what it says.
So there's different versions of this article that have been passed at different meetings, and I know this from one kind of experience I had where it made a big difference, so I think we just need to check. Right?
It's November of '21 special town meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so we
The
can
most,
check.
one of the, like, for example, the version that's in this warrant is pretty open-ended and would cover it. But one of the prior versions, it was more narrow about just like one school project, so I do think we need to make, and another thing we could do is we could just have a warrant article that just authorizes $25,000.
Yeah, but if we do that, then he doesn't get the money. We don't get it to July 1st. We're trying to go ahead and get it started.
Okay.
So what we can do, there's this, we could do ARPA, it's
ARPA?
$25,000. We could do free cash, that's already certified, we could take it out of there. So there's ways to do this so they have the
Okay.
money real fast. We can do it. Even if we agree that the old article doesn't really reflect.
And
the
we're
spirit of
satisfied
this.
there's firms that do this, that can, yes? Okay.
How long would a study like that take to complete?
It's not something that'll be done probably, in a month. I would say 2 to 3 months.
And then we've got 2 to 3 months. If we get it going right away, we've got 2 to 3 months, then it
But
gives us
this is
time to think
not
about it.
about dispatch.
I think they should look at the whole thing and come back and say, if you're going to keep dispatch locally, this is how many you need, and this is how you do it, et cetera. So talk about, just say, okay, if you're going to keep the dispatch locally, or you're not going to do it for 3 or 4 years because you're going to go the Westboro route, then, this is what you need to do to cover that need.
And
Yeah.
people who do these
Yeah.
studies for public safety departments sort of know the territory and ought to be able to do it fairly quickly, I would think.
And Andrew, I'm grudging too, but advisory's going to go to town meeting, and I think if this is a 0-6 vote for them, and they're going to say, guys, our job is to recommend to you, this is why we think you shouldn't do this yet. We have proposed this very reasonable thing to do the study, get it done fast, and then come back to you in the fall with a recommendation that's really based on, something other than we think we need.
I still like the lieutenant position myself.
I'm saying, I'm doing this gradually. I definitely want the lieutenant position,
Yeah.
but this may be a better way to get to it, Sam.
I guess my context for that, though, is I think body cameras are a critical function in this day and age, not only for the public's protection, but for the staff's protection. And this sounds like this is something that is necessary, given that choice that we've made historically, and people have suggested, well, let's turn off the body cameras. I think that's unacceptable risk for the town for a variety of reasons. So I think that bridge has been crossed, in my view. So
I agree.
Yeah, I'm afraid that body cameras are a one-way thing. Why did you turn the body cameras off? You know, I don't want to have to answer that question. I'm struggling with the lieutenant, to be honest with you, because I haven't yet been able to quantify exactly how big a problem this is. And I have a little side project to understand what Freedom of Information Act requests actually cost us. On the dispatchers, I am in favor of adding 4. Town meeting told us they didn't want regional dispatch, and so I think town meeting has to face the cost of an effective dispatch system. Then that was the principal reason. I could be convinced to support the lieutenant. Frankly, I'd like to wait until Monday to vote on this one because I've got a little more homework I'd like to do. I haven't yet been able to quantify just exactly how many hours we're actually spending doing body camera reviews. I've sort of gotten some anecdotal information from the chief. It's been very helpful, but I'd like to dig in just a little further.
So see how, we've got a variety of opinions already within the select board. So you
Right,
want
yeah.
1 or 2, Al wants 4, I want none pending the regional dispatch decision. And then, if we decide not to do it, then different story. I don't know what you want, Margaret, I don't know what Andrew, but this is my point. We're going to go to town meeting, we're all going to have our own opinion here. And,
So-
town meeting's going to go, what are you talking,
So I was just talking with Vanessa here about, okay, Monday is not really a day where we can be.
It's got to be done
Changing
before then.
things.
It's
What's
got to be
going in
done
the
before
warrant's got to
then.
be decided.
But Monday is the day to sign.
Yep.
So,
And we voted on the budget last time, 3-2 vote with 1 lieutenant in there, that was it. That's what we voted on, so that's the vote so far.
yeah, so.
We'd have to change
So
that.
just kind of like, if you just focus this just for the lieutenant position, right? Kathy, I think what you're saying is there's benefit to getting the staffing study in particular to make an informed presentation to town meeting about whether there's justification for adding the lieutenant position, particularly how it relates to review of the body camera and that, okay? I am on board with that. I think that once we start talking about dispatches, it just becomes a whole different discussion. So, like we just can't have, particularly where there's 50-plus articles on this warrant, to have a discussion on the police budget that's like too kind of multi-pronged, at least on the lieutenant. I think if we're on the same page with advisory, and I think Chief Newell is all right with this as well, to do the staffing study, and then we have a more informed discussion about this in the fall, because it really wasn't until like January that we really started considering this additional.
Yes.
So in other words, for this, I voted against the lieutenant because I wanted the lieutenant and the dispatchers, which is kind of a weird way to vote against the lieutenant. I wanted more than.
No, Sam did the same thing.
No, I did the same. But there were
Yeah.
2 positions that
Yeah.
Chief Newell wanted, actually, in addition to the dispatch.
Yeah, and we didn't spend as much time talking about the patrol person.
Yeah.
So basically what we're talking about is supporting a budget that has no additional staffing, but it has $25,000 for the staffing study, which could come from free cash, could come from ARPA, and then there's 2 separate but related things that we're targeting to have on the fall town meeting. One would be you'd have the results of the staffing study that would inform a discussion about whether to add the additional lieutenant position, and then the dispatch,
Dispatch question.
yeah, I'm still a little bit, I think it
So
might be,
does the staffing study include a study of dispatch?
Yes.
Okay, so both of those together?
They're going to be
I see.
instructed that, yeah, so that they can come
Totally
back and say, if you're going to stay local, we're not asking them to make the decision for us to go regional or not, but we would ask them, if we were going to stay local and dispatch, are going to be there for a while, even if we're going to go regional, how would we do it? What would be, how many do we need to truly minimize or mitigate the risk that we believe is there with one?
but I think we also want to aim for, at that same fall town meeting, a specific regional proposal.
Decision,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and we tell town meeting that, because if we get there and you say what you said, Al says what he says, I say something different, you say something different, advisor gets up and says something different, Bonnie and John Butler get up there and say something different, town meeting's gonna go, you know,
I agree.
A, B, C, D, E, F, or F. So I just think it confuses the issue. It doesn't give town meeting a clear idea of what they're really voting for. So in the end, they won't even be clear what they're voting for.
I mean, if the chief can live with that, I can support
And
it.
he can. So I nodded a minute ago. People who are listening and not seeing, yes, I did talk to Chief Noel, and he is okay. He prefers to do it now, but he's okay knowing that if we have a fall town meeting and we approve it right then, that that's effective the next day. We don't wait till the next July 1st.
Okay.
Yes,
You've totally confused me, and I'm sitting in the room, I can't imagine what the public is thinking. Are you asking for a study of the whole department? That's question number one, for the police department.
Yes.
And the funds as a separate article?
It's in the police department
All right,
budget
so the
right now.
funds will be there to do that. So that budget could be reduced by that amount if somebody chooses.
Yeah.
That's why I think Andrew's idea of having a separate article makes more sense. The other thing is, I'm going to stand up for Chief Newell right now. Not that he needs,
Bonnie?
wait a minute.
Let me answer you. So we've already decided we're pulling it out of the article because we want the money to be available the next day. So we're either going to put it in free cash that's already been certified, or we're going to make an ARPA decision, which won't be
Because
town
you've
meeting.
totally confused this whole thing. I agree with Andrew. I'm going to have to stand up for Chief Newell. Not that he needs anybody to stand up for him. He's the individual that worked for over a year to get that department certified. He's also the individual that you appointed as our police chief. If anybody knows that department, it's Chief Newell. And what bothers me as a taxpayer in this town, you're going for another study, and right in front of you, you know you need dispatchers. It was addressed by your board before the last election. Because the site didn't work, the issues still exist. And to say we're going to study that when we already know that, all you have to do is read the Collins report. I've read it 7 times. Read the minutes after that meeting that they had at the police station. Read other town reports that involve Southborough. Read regionalization decisions made by Boxborough. I've read every community's reports here. There is no delay in adding new dispatches to that department. What you have done is caused confusion for this town, for your employees. Nobody's applying for jobs in other communities because there's ongoing discussion about regional dispatch. Who wants to apply for a job when it might be terminated in 6 months by a vote of a town meeting or a vote of 5 members of a board of selectmen in any community? We have an immediate need. It was stated by your professionals in this room that it needs to be addressed whether you go to regional dispatch or not. I'll have more to say at town meeting, but you're rolling the dice, and that's not fair to the dispatchers, it's not fair to the firefighters, the personnel on the police department, and it's not fair for our children in their schools.
all right. Well, I disagree with what you said, but I do think Mrs. Fanoff has a point about, in my view, staffing study is something, I would look to it to inform a decision about the lieutenant position, more so than the dispatcher, because that's just a broader discussion. I think it is correct that the Collins Center report went through a lot of that same, what are the appropriate staffing ratios? But I agree that we need to just streamline this, and that the way to streamline it is to, for basically the level services budget. I 100% agree that with you that this is not in any way not supporting Chief Newell, because
Nope.
you've already discussed this with him and he's on board with, it's actually a more informed way of trying to get support for the lieutenant.
What he wants, yeah.
Yes.
Could I ask Andrew to speak to why you've not supported the positions? Why advisory?
I think Kathy explained it pretty well. I don't think advisory supports the positions. We just need more information to be able to support them. The other thing that might come out of the study is that it needs more than 4 dispatchers, it needs more than a lieutenant, it needs more than an officer. But it's been 20 years since we did a professional study. Chief, even though he's been in the department, is still new in that role. And, this wasn't something that came up underneath Chief Paulus. This wasn't something that came up from the last the study. We added a new 5th dispatcher not too long ago, and that was supposed to solve our issue. And so then there's a lot of anecdotal evidence that there's issues, and yeah, the Collins report had some information, but we know how hard it is to get rid of resources once we onboard them, that and even if we did approve these resources in July, they probably wouldn't start till October anyway, right? By the time we hired them or put them through the academy, et cetera. So to spend the money to have a third party come in, to do the investigation, to do interviews, to tell us how we are compared to other communities, to look at what we're doing from a body cam perspective, to understand what do we need to do from a Freedom of Information Act perspective, how are other communities handling public records requests, are we equipped from a data retention perspective, or any of that kind of information, that I don't think we were as prepared for body cams as we should have been, to then come to a fall town meeting and have a well thought out plan that has a multi-year implementation strategy, and if at the same time we have an idea of where we are from regionalization, all the better. But at this point in time, there's not enough information to approve any of the resources as far as advisory is concerned.
Thank you.
And I would look for somebody other than the Collins Center to do this study. I think my impression is I've been underwhelmed with what I've seen from them. I think having a new set of eyes look at it makes some sense.
Okay, so I think that, are we on board with the level services budget for police and supporting the third-party staffing study? I am.
I am.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't think we need to take any vote on that. We just, the warrant that we'll see, that we'll sign on Monday, that's what it'll.
Right.
Okay,
It's going to have the advisory, so the number is 2,523,035, so it's going to have that in it. It's going to have the reduction of $200,000 for roads, and we're leaving the engineer in, and hope that advisory ups their
so
vote.
that's-
Where's the 25,000 for this?
It's in the police department budget right now, so we will need to take that out and throw it through free cash. I can talk to Brian about that tomorrow, or Andrew can. So we just need to take it out of free cash so they can have it, on March 24th.
Brian is here, any problem
Brian's
with that?
taking notes too.
Oh, Brian, I forgot you were
Yeah,
here. Oh, I am so, sorry. It's good. So you know what we got to do, right?
We're gonna have to reduce the police budget 25.
Yeah, and then take it out of free cash.
Do that or offer it.
Okay, okay.
Add it to the 5,000 we get to we're gonna have to put it somewhere.
Yeah, so you put it back into the 5, make that 30, right? And that's how you get it back in, right?
So do you want to talk about taking it from ARPA tonight, or do you want to discuss that?
I don't know, we gotta look at the ARPA. We used a lot of ARPA when we did the vote last one. So, but Brian, okay, if we take it out.
Might I suggest that this would be an excellent thing to perhaps ask one of our pilot partners to fund?
We've already made the request for 3 of the 4. And
No, for the
fourth-
study.
Yeah, but the 4th one is not going to be, we're not having that meeting until May.
It's hard to change that once you've had the conversation at this point, I think. I think going back for more is not ideal.
Well, all right. You don't get what you don't ask for.
That's right.
all right, I'm just trying to wrap up the discussion about Article 5 before we then.
Okay, so what we voted on tonight is to support the advisory recommendation for the police department budget for fiscal year '25, other than we're going to take the $25,000 out and we're going to run it through free cash, previously certified free cash, so that it's available the next day.
I think we actually have to vote on that, but
We are, that was the motion, so.
Second.
that was
I'll
my
second
motion.
that.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor, Mr. Hamilton?
no.
Dennington, aye.
Cook is aye.
Stivers, aye.
Landry, aye.
All right. So the next is Articles 6 and 7, which are Mrs. Faniff's articles. Yep.
Thank you. When does the moderator need the slides for the presentations?
I don't know. I think you should ask.
All right,
Mrs.
would
Neal.
somebody see that we get that? That's usually the selectmen will let us know. Second, let me understand this. There's no dispatches in this budget as well.
Correct.
When is the fall town meeting?
Date has not been set yet.
Do you have an idea?
October-ish?
Well, we can't go much less in the middle of October because Paul needs to set the tax rate. So
Yeah.
call it, between September 15th and October 15th.
So 6 months from now, we're going to find out what we need that we already need as far as dispatches. And then it's going to be another town meeting to fund those dispatches? Or are you
No,
saying
we
the
would
same
fund them
town
at that
meeting?
meeting, so that would be the proposed revised budget for police for fiscal year '25 at that special.
At the
town
fall
meeting.
town meeting?
Yeah, and then it would be effective the next day, so it's not like it waits till next July 1st, so the next day, the money's there.
So whatever comes in on that study, if it says we need 6, 7, 8, then you're going to fund it, correct?
Not necessarily.
Well, that's the purpose of a study. It
Right.
gives you
It-
guidance.
It informs us, but it doesn't make a decision for us.
Right. So that's why I'm saying you should be making that decision tonight.
Okay, so then this is a good segue to Articles 6 and 7, which are Mrs. Faniff's articles that this is funding for the 4 additional dispatchers. The natural consequence of the vote that we just took on this last one is that we would vote no on these other 6 and 7, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I move that the board support at town meeting Articles 6 and 7.
Second.
Okay, Hamilton?
Aye.
Dennington, no?
Cook is no.
Stivers, no.
Landry, abstain.
Okay, so 1, 3, 1.
Okay. And I would like the board's view on then Article 56, which is the citizens petition, that basically says, expresses a sentiment of town meeting that town meeting should have be consulted about before entering into any IMA for a rec. Should we move it up so that it's grouped with these others? And just my own view on this, I would propose that we just wait until at town meeting on this, because it's kind of frustrating to me, because I think at one of our last meetings, we basically have agreed with a lot of the substance of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So,
This is number 7 we're talking about?
yeah. We're talking about, it's Article 56.
Oh, okay, so I'm on the wrong one.
Okay,
Sorry.
so the issue is,
Let's
would
jump up
it be more efficient at the town meeting to move 56 up so that it's after Article 7, okay? So that you would have in one focused discussion,
Yep.
staffing?
Definitely.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that's fine.
all
Good.
right. So should we take a vote on it?
Yep.
Okay, I move that we move up Article 56 so that it's immediately after Article 7 on the warrant.
Second.
All those, Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Dennington, aye?
Cook is aye.
Stivers, aye.
Landry, aye.
And Andrew, you're suggesting we take a position on that one?
Yeah,
on the-
I would suggest town meeting because, okay, a no vote kind of inappropriately suggests that we don't agree with some of the requests. But I think a yes vote is, there's some parts of the language there which I don't like at all. So I just say we will listen to town meeting and then take a vote on it. But basically, what we had discussed, and I think had a consensus around, was pretty much the same thing. That
Yeah, we're willing to listen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think I agree with taking this at town meeting. I do believe we should ask the proponents to come in and talk to us as we have on the others.
Okay,
Sometime
so
between
know
now and
I've
town meeting.
talked to Mr. Butler about this, and Mrs. Faniff's here right now, so, I mean,
I understand it's advisory, but on the other hand, I think it's favorable to the Board of Selectmen to hear the concerns again. And if you're going to have a fall town meeting, I would think you'd want the support of the community, because they're also going to be supporting dispatches and possibly other increases in some of these budgets. So it's worth listening and maybe hearing and not delaying and bringing an article before town meeting, as Foxborough did, as a courtesy. We know you don't have to.
yeah.
It's a courtesy. It's not anything more than that, to tell us what you're doing, what's in it, and get a sentiment from the community. I mean, that's open government. I know you don't have to do it, because I also sat in the room when the attorney said it was on the original draft to bring it to town meeting. And the attorney for the town at the time said, remove it, it's not necessary. And it was removed.
Okay, so are we all set just at town meeting for this?
Can I ask a question? I know you said you're going to sign the warrant Monday, sometime soon,
Because we have to,
and the numbers will be in the warrant
yes.
as you're discussing this evening, because I want to be able to number my warrant articles so they coincide with yours. So that
Well, we're
no
going to take
confusion.
we've already taken out one tonight above that, so be careful.
No, that's what I said. When you sign it, I will use
It'll
the
be
numbering you use. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so this is now we've dealt with 5, 6, 7,
This is 8.
yeah, and then 56 is now 8. Okay, Articles 8 and 9, water enterprise budget, and Article 9, transfer of $100,000 from retained earnings from the water enterprise fund. Are we ready to vote on these?
Yes.
We don't have much of an option, right?
No, I mean, the budget is fixed cost, right? And the 100 is just to make sure that, the retained earnings is appropriate. But the real discussion we're going to have is probably Monday, when we
Yes.
talk about water rates. That's where the decision is. This is pretty perfunctory stuff.
Yep.
Okay, so I move that the board support at town meeting Articles 8 and 9.
Second?
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Dennington, aye.
Cook is aye.
Stivers, aye.
Landry, aye.
And then Articles 10 and 12 is the capital budget. Basically reflects what we discussed at the budget summit, minus things that are going to have pilot contributions to them or were taken off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I move that the board support at town meeting Articles 10 and 12.
Second?
All those in favor? Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Dennington, aye.
Cook is aye.
Stivers, aye.
Landry, aye.
And we're taking off Articles, Article 49, right? We already voted that. I'm going to come back to Article 25, which is the Capital Stabilization Fund.
Mm-hmm.
So Article 50, this is the transfer of CPC money to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I think everyone saw the letter from that CPC sent about it. I think it is correct that we said on February 6th that we would take it off this warrant and then talk about it with CPC and then deal with it, as opposed to just support this town warrant, so I'm in favor of taking it off. the
And then
warrant.
having a discussion soon
Yep.
after town meeting
And
about it.
I think I spoke to Ben Smith right before this meeting, and, we have to work out schedules, but we would aim to start to have a discussion about, something jointly supported as soon as April.
Yeah, and also how to maybe reform Affordable House Trust and SHOP-C in a way that, we've got one entity that's much more effective than what we've got right now.
Yep.
Yeah. The practical consideration is that we have nothing to spend this money on anyway.
Yes.
There's nothing to spend the money that's currently there.
So we can wait 6 months.
Regrettably so. We are moving at the stately pace that we've always moved at.
I think we're moving at a better pace. I think we are going to have a breakthrough,
Yeah.
positive breakthrough.
I remain hopeful.
Well, Al, with all the efforts you've made, I'm sure something is going to come to fruition here.
We're back to battering ram up and head at the door again.
All right, so I move that we remove from the warrant Article 50.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Dennington, aye.
Cook is aye.
Stivers, aye.
Landry, aye.
Okay, so Article 25 is the Algonquin Regional Capital Stabilization Fund. I have to say, I thought we had voted on this at the.
Yep.
Did we? No?
I thought we did, but
I thought we did
don't
too, and I thought
remember,
it was,
yeah.
well, I thought it was 4-1 of support, and Mr. Hamilton was in favor, but otherwise.
Okay, I'm not in my head, no, as if I'm positive. I am fairly confident we didn't vote on it. We voted on Assabet, we voted on K through 8, special ed, but I'm pretty sure we didn't vote on this one.
Okay. So I move that the board support at town meeting Article 25.
Second.
All right, Mr. Hamilton?
No.
Dennington, aye.
Cook is no.
Stivers, no.
This is for at town meeting?
No, this is a yes or no. Do
Oh,
you
this is a
support?
yes or no? Yes, aye.
Okay, so
1, 2,
it
3.
fails.
It didn't pass.
Okay, didn't pass. So advisory is against it, 0-6, so
So
it's probably not going to pass, but it's up to town meeting.
Well, you never know. If it's
You never
a
know?
School crowd there.
Yep. Okay, Article 41, so what's remaining, Article 39, MBTA communities, there's no way we could
Right.
vote on that tonight. Article 41, ZBA expiration of special permits, looks like advisory voted on it, I think we could vote on it, right?
Yep.
Any questions about that?
Nope.
So I move that the select board support at town meeting Article 41.
Second.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Dennington, aye.
Cook is aye.
Stivers, aye.
Landry, aye.
Okay. MBTA communities, what else is,
You did good.
I had a thought and then I just lost it, but,
Have we voted?
anything else left?
Oh, the tricentennial article.
No, we approved those.
Yeah, that Jay said we don't need to go to town meeting.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Okay, so, Brian also, I think, came to this conclusion that it's not necessary to have a town meeting article to establish this fund to receive contributions for the tricentennial fund. So we can take this off the town meeting, and that's one last thing. But I think there still would be an article requesting an appropriation of 30,000, and that would be an opportunity for the tricentennial committee to publicize the tricentennial.
So we get rid of 46 and keep 47,
Yes.
or whatever the new number is going to be. Okay.
So I move that we remove from the warrant Article 46, which is establishing the tricentennial fund.
Second.
All those in favor?
Hamilton, aye.
Dennington, aye?
Cook is aye.
Stivers, aye.
Landry, aye.
Okay, now I remembered the other thought I had. On the CPC articles, Ben Smith sent an email Monday afternoon with the version of the final voted CPC articles that were voted on Saturday. They have not caught up to the draft which is in here. He told me that there's just there's one thing that's not changed in there, which is town council had advised that it's not appropriate to have, as part of the language of these articles, calling for a memorandum of understanding between the CPC and like the golf course committee or whoever is getting the money about how the money is going to be spent. And while that may be true, we have done it in the past, and it's more of kind of not like a legally enforceable contract that's going to end up in court, but it's more just a guidelines of how they want to see the money spent, right? So although town council thinks that the language shouldn't be in there, the CPC voted articles still have that language, all right? We still support the CPC projects. And the only differences that we can expect between the version which is in here and then the final versions are, if I'm gonna get this right. So for the golf course committee, the vote they took on Saturday, that some aspect of the irrigation complies with a.
International
Sure.
Audubon.
Yes, International
Requirements,
Audubon
yep.
Standard. Okay.
Yep.
And the second was, there was a bond payment, instead of it being like 6,100, it's 61,000. So it's just making it accurate, all right? So for that reason, I mean, we already voted to support them, so the final printed warrant is gonna have, and Vanessa, you can make sure that the version on Monday has the correct language.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But are they going to take out the MOU requirement?
They're not gonna take out the MOU. They voted they don't want to take out the MOU.
Even though Jay told them it was not appropriate to bargain with yourself?
You know, it's an instance of where I mean, I do remember there being other requirements like this in other CPC articles, okay? So there's never been an actual case or, you know, legal problem.
Disagreement there, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's another topic for discussion with CPC after town meeting.
Sure.
To get clarity on all of this process going forward.
Okay, yeah. So
I would
there's-
suggest clarity and direction.
Yeah, and we're talking about having a meeting in April, hopefully, to get on the same page about a couple of these things. And also your idea, Marguerite, of a, capital plan, if they have suggestions of things that, on the capital plan that could be funded with CPC money.
With CIPC.
No, CPC.
money, CPA money, CPA money.
CPA money.
But also to meet with the capital improvement and planning,
Yeah.
as well as us.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so then I think we've now voted on everything except MBTA communities. The only thing we're left is at town meeting is Article 56, which is becoming Article 8. And then, Sam, I don't know what, the MBTA communities,
Yep.
planning is finalizing this so that it's gonna be in the version which is on Monday.
That's my understanding.
Yes.
Yeah.
We
And
took
so,
that into account.
a lot of moving parts there still.
did that.
Yes, there are still a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, tonight.
Okay, but he already told me about that, so we took that into account when we reduced the sidewalk money.
Okay, good. Yep, so again, Andrew, I think that there's still, again, some language that they're working on there to try to connect the new bylaw with the existing zoning bylaw appropriately, and they got feedback from town council that they're working to incorporate, so it's a complicated project, but
And they
they
know we need that by
claimed they were
Okay,
gonna have
but they're
it done.
planning on going forward right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, at least I heard nothing to indicate they weren't,
Correct.
so.
All right, I think that takes care of the discussion of the warrant.
Good job.
Okay, so then the only thing left is Representative Donahue had asked for kind of a wish list and of projects between, 50 and 100?
25 and 100.
25 and 100.
In general is what we've done in the
So
past.
I have two in mind, but maybe I'll just start with, Vanessa, I know, we sent out an email to department heads, right?
We did, yeah.
Okay.
We had a few quick responses. The 25,000 for the staffing study was one thing we had on the list.
Who suggested that one?
Mark and I talked about
Okay,
that
all right.
one. The recreation department would like to seek another 25,000 to continue the ADA improvements that are on our pending list. The other item Jay Montijo and I were talking about today is the work in this room to upgrade the ability to have hybrid meetings with the same equipment we have over at public safety. He would estimate about 40,000.
All right, so the two that I had in mind were, and I don't know if the number fits, but the culvert that Bill was talking about by New England Children's Center.
Willow Street, yeah, that was on my list, frankly.
Yeah, because we've got a precedent for that, and that Northborough Road,
Yeah.
you got some state money
But,
for that.
but
It's
that
too
money
expensive.
is not going to do that, but I think ask for the maximum and say to help subsidize that project. It's
Okay, so I
critical.
think you'd have to do that, because the whole project is
Oh, yeah,
probably
much more,
millions.
much more.
And then the study itself is 200,000.
And then the other was, the Tricentennial Committee is gonna, saw some emails going around about, who was it? They got some money from
I
the
think
state.
it was Westboro. Typically, they ask for that in the year preceding the actual anniversary.
Okay.
We could certainly offer that now
Okay.
and see what happens.
Yeah, but, the staffing study, I don't see how that gets approved by the legislature in time, so.
No, so I'd take that one off.
Yeah.
But I do like the McAuliffe room, doing what
Yeah,
we did.
and this is something we don't need to decide tonight. We could, but
Correct.
we need to
We gotta
decide
do
it
it
We could
next
pretty
week.
discuss it again on Monday if you want to. She really wants to know by March 10th.
So either tonight or Monday.
Yeah,
Yeah. I was thinking about similar AV support for the senior center.
I was thinking of that one too.
I was at a meeting the other day where they were struggling to have a projector presentation there, and again, having another option for public meetings. There are groups that meet in there simply because the meeting space is tight, and they basically don't actually have access to Zoom, which I think we ought to push hard to get every committee meeting with Zoom. And there are only a handful who don't now, as a matter of fact. I think I counted like 6 or 7 now.
And public safety only holds 49 people legally.
Well, the senior center doesn't hold that many more, I don't think,
Yeah.
does it? It's
We couldn't.
not too many, yeah. So anyway, having another meeting space, public meeting space, I think is pretty critical. So that one and the culvert thing were the two on my list. But now, are these, Vanessa, things that we're actually likely to get, or is this another one of those things?
It's
that
really a wish list at this point. It's so early in the state budget process, but it is something, she really wants to get local input on.
But in the past, we've been asked for these, and they come out as part of the budget, but it never gets funded.
Correct.
So is this the same risk for these as
We
well?
got a few last year, right?
We've got a couple of these.
Got some
yeah.
ADA money, I think, last year.
Yeah.
some police
No
or fire
guarantee.
equipment, we got some?
We got something.
Yeah.
So remember too, the state revenue is down this year already, right? And of course, it's going to be down more when they realize the millionaire's tax didn't work. That'll be next October. So my guess is the state is going to end up with some problems that they don't really know about right now. So I would think this is a wish list.
Yep.
But we got it, if you don't ask, you're not going to get it, so let's do it.
Those are good projects.
Okay, but do you want to?
Marguerite, anything for you?
Vote on it tonight or vote on it on Monday?
You ready to vote tonight?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, what?
Mr. Pfaff has a suggestion.
Yes,
I suggest adding flag school renovation.
We did that last year to the
was
one-stop
one-stop.
grant,
Yeah.
and got turned down on that.
How much is that? That's bigger money than.
It was 200, 250 to
Yeah.
do what she recommended on the outside, and that's not to get it ready on the inside.
Which is above this limit here, but, hey, put on the list, see, maybe
Right.
she has some pull there.
So we
So
do,
we would give Representative Donahue a list or just one thing?
No, we would give her a list. And
Oh.
otherwise-
and then she can.
Okay.
And
decide.
whatever she thinks she can fund.
All right,
or
that
get
makes sense.
support
Okay, so we
for.
do
Yeah.
flag, we do audiovisual here and senior center,
Senior center.
and we
Culvert.
do the culvert. Is that it? Oh, and ADA for rec. Yeah.
Sounds good.
I think Al might have had something.
Al, did you
Yeah.
have something?
Nope.
Okay.
All right, you think we need to take a vote on it, or I think we're okay? Yeah,
I think so. Yep.
I think that's it for the items on the agenda,
I
right?
think so too.
Okay. Any other public comment?
No hands up in the audience, but Mr. Litt is here.
So before we do anything, I just wanted to say, Andrew, good job for doing the meeting tonight. Given, you lost your father on Sunday, so I'm sorry. I know we're all sorry, but good job for being able to do what you did tonight.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Tim Litt, Woodland Road. I just wanted to remind you about the suggestion that you add a one-sentence article to delete Article 2 of Chapter 6 of the Town Code, which is the defunct Consumer Advisory Commission. If not now, at least sometime.
Let's definitely try to do that in the fall. Advisory's already done their voting. They got a lot to do tomorrow night, so let's do it. I mean, there's no reason not to do this, I don't think. We get rid of a committee.
Wasn't there another one too on that list?
No.
That was just the one that he said hadn't been used
Not
since like
Solid Waste
1970.
Disposal Committee is still out there?
That one's we're getting rid of that one as
With the
part of the
Public
Public
Works,
Works
okay.
Advisory Committee article.
Okay.
All right, and then Mrs. Luttrell?
Good evening. Just quickly, I saw on your list of warrant articles that you have the MBTA community listed as a 2/3 vote, and we've been informed that it's just a majority vote.
The whole thing, Mimi, or parts of it?
Definitely should be.
I think so. We've asked several different ways, and we're told that the whole thing is just a majority vote. It's part of the housing choice because of the multifamily housing. And so very sorry to hear about your father, Andrew.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Mr.
Hamilton, aye.
Bennington, aye.
Cook eye.
Stivers, aye.
Landry, aye.
Thank you and good night.